Yet I swallowed it directly and nurtured it within my body for 18 full years. This was a tremendous fortuitous opportunity for Fang Chen. How could she dare stand in his way? Then we shall meet again in the Sword Forest tomorrow. She watched Fang Chen and Liu Ruyan depart from afar, and only after their figures vanished into the throng of people did the expression on Ling Jing, whose face gradually fade. She issued an order. All of you may go about your business. Meet back at the inn at night. The disciples acknowledged the order and dispersed. During this escape, all their medicinal pills, talismans, and other supplies had been completely exhausted and needed to be replenished. Jai Rai, you also prepared to leave, but was called to a halt by Ling Jing, who... A sense of unease stirred in Jai Rayu's heart, but she still obediently stayed behind. Once all the other disciples had left, Ling Jing, who fixed a meaningful gaze on Jai Rai, her expression stern, you are truly bold. Panic flared in Jai Rayu's heart, and she hurriedly bowed. This disciple does not know where she has erred. I asked the Grand Elder to point out my mistake. Ling Jing, who let out a cold snort, and spoke words that threw Jai Rai, into utter panic. You guessed long ago that this masked man is Fang Chen, whom the sect master has placed a bounty on, did you not? You actually concealed this information and failed to report it. Asterisk thump thump, asterisk Jai Rai, Yu's face went stiff, and she stammered in panic. He is Fang Chen. This disciple truly had no idea. Ling Jing, who said, stop pretending. You cannot tell me you failed to recognize the gyukin on his back and the sword wrapped in cloth. These are Fang Chen's personal belongings. You saw these things just now, yet did not show the slightest bit of surprise. That alone is enough to prove you have long known his true identity. Jai Rayu's face drained of color, her lips trembling as she knelt down, saying, this disciple did not intentionally conceal the truth. I beg the Grand Elder for forgiveness. Unexpectedly, Ling Jing, who raised a hand and helped her up, not letting her prostrate herself. The sternness on her face vanished entirely, and she chuckled. If you are guilty, would that not mean that I, who let him leave, am also guilty? Only then did Jai Rai, come to her senses. That was right. If Ling Jing, who had truly intended to capture Fang Chen, why had she not made a move the moment she recognized his identity? She asked uncertainly, Grand Elder, what do you mean? Ling Jing, who smiled faintly and said, what I mean is, we know nothing. We will let him off this time, and consider all the favors I owe him repaid in full. Upon hearing the first half of her words, a look of delight crossed Jai Rayu's face, but at the second half, she did not know whether to laugh or cry. She pointed at the verdant medicinal pill in Ling Jinghu's hand, and said teasingly, I am afraid you will still have to keep repaying this favor, Elder Ling. Ling Jing, who was stunned for a moment, stared at the medicinal pill in her hand, and asked in confusion, it is merely a healing medicinal pill. How precious can it possibly be? Envy appeared on Jai Rayu's face as she stared at the verdant pill, and said, a healing medicinal pill worth 200 zero spirit stones, is that not precious enough? How much? Ling Jing, who had just sat down, shot to her feet in shock. 200 zero spirit stones. How can it be that expensive? Wait a moment. Could this be the fabled rejuvenation elixir, the ancient medicinal pill that can heal all internal and external injuries within half an hour? Jai Rai nodded, her eyes blazing with fervor as she said, what else would it be? Ling Jing, who drew in a sharp breath, Fang Chen had actually given her a life-saving spiritual pill of this caliber. After a long moment, she carefully stored it away, and said with a bitter smile, this favor truly can never be repaid. At the foot of the 10,000 Swords Sect mountain, Liu Ruyan came to a halt and said, I shall wait for you right here. Shadow Guard 1 was to request an audience with the Grand Elder of the 10,000 Swords Sect, and her accompanying them would undoubtedly make her a burden, some dead weight. Fang Chen nodded, then stepped through the mountain gate. The moment he entered, he almost believed he had stepped into a bustling mortal market. Rows upon rows of carriage, convoys, and dozens of disciples were clustered at the mountain gate, waiting to complete their mission handovers. The few 10,000 Swords Sect disciples tasked with overseeing mission handovers were completely swamped, frazzled to their wits' end. The corner of Fang Chen's mouth twitched. It turned out everyone acted the same way. Relying on the protection of their elders, they had taken on trivial missions to leech merit points for free. The sheer volume of people had nearly paralyzed the 10,000 Swords Sect's mission handover post entirely. At that moment, Fang Chen heard a familiar voice, thick with irritable complaints. What are you all shoving for? Can none of you learn to line up properly? Fang Chen turned to look and was left speechless. It was Qin Caihe, who was grumbling nonstop as she attempted to sort out the chaotic scene, her expression thoroughly impatient. She had just returned to the 10,000 Swords Sect, barely had time to warm the seat on her bench before she was forced to provide support because the mountain gate was backed up with disciples turning in missions who would be in a good mood in her position. The junior sister standing beside her said cautiously, "Senior sister Qin, do not speak like that. You will easily offend others. All those present today are elite disciples from various sects. This is no ordinary occasion. This single sentence could offend countless powerful disciples. If one of the vengeful ones holds a grudge against you, it will bring no small amount of trouble." Qin Caihe, however, continued to act as she pleased, saying, "Who cares about them? They claim to be elite disciples, yet they do not even have the most basic sense of propriety." Fang Chen rubbed his nose. This woman was fairly reasonable when she was with him. How had she reverted to her sharp, acerbic true nature the moment she was apart from him? He patiently lined up at the end of the queue, and before long it was his turn. Qin Caihe was dripping with sweat after finishing the registration of the previous disciples' information, still grumbling incessantly under her breath. "Every single one of you only knows how to take advantage, and you call yourselves elite disciples. All you do is leech benefits for free." The junior sister beside her was speechless, quickly darting a nervous glance at the expressions of the surrounding disciples, and pleaded, "Senior sister, please say less. You might not fear offending people, but I am terrified of being dragged into trouble with you." Qin Caihe huffed coldly. "I said what I said. Why should I fear them?" Fang Chen stepped forward awkwardly, for he was also part of this free-loading army. He never expected that, only 9 days after they had parted, he would be indirectly scolded by Qin Caihe along with the rest of the crowd. He placed his jade slip, identity token, and a contact letter on the table. The letter was the required mission item for this assignment. Qin Caihe glanced casually at Fang Chen, noticed he was wearing a mask, frowned slightly, picked up the letter, and began inspecting it carefully. At the same time, she instructed the junior sister beside her, "Check his identity token and jade slip thoroughly. The sword forest opening is imminent. We cannot allow any sneaky, suspicious individuals to sneak into the sect." Very soon, the junior sister confirmed everything was in order, saying, "The identity token and mission jade slip have no discrepancies." Qin Caihe had also finished inspecting the letter, and said, "There are no issues here, either." But she did not let him pass just like that. She crossed her arms over her chest, stared at Fang Chen, and warned, "Your Excellency, during this special period, it is best not to conceal yourself and act furtively, lest you draw unnecessary suspicion." Fang Chen rubbed his nose, having been chided by her once again. He nodded and said, "Thank you for your guidance, senior sister." Seeing that Fang Chen was fairly willing to listen to advice and had a decent attitude, Qin Caihe then instructed the junior sister beside her, register his information. The junior sister let out a small sigh of relief. Senior sister Qin truly had no fear of offending people, daring to lecture a stranger face to face like that. If the other party had been narrow-minded, a permanent grudge would have been formed right then. Fortunately, senior sister Qin did not make things difficult for him further. She quickly flipped open the registration ledger and began recording the information cross-referenced with the identity token. She muttered softly under her breath, "Fang Chen." Qin Caihe froze abruptly, then suddenly cried out in shock, "What did you say his name is?" The junior sister trembled violently in fright, thinking she had made a mistake in the registration. She immediately glanced at the identity token, and after verifying it, she said in confusion, "Senior sister, I didn't register wrong. This is Fang Chen, a disciple of Qinyan sect." Qin Caihe stared at the masked man before her in disbelief. When she caught sight of his smiling gaze, her entire body shuddered. This was truly Fang Chen. Overcome with wild joy, she leaped straight out from behind the table. She grasped Fang Chen's arms in excitement, her words tumbling over each other. "Junior brother Fang, is that really you? Why have you come to 10,000 Swords Sect? I thought I would never see you again." Fang Chen said half crossly, "I never expected your temper would grow so much in just a few days. Fortunately, we were only separated for a short while. If it had been longer, I would not have let you off with just a scolding." Qin Caihe's fair jade face flushed bright red instantly. Thinking of all the things she had said just now, she covered her face in shame. She had actually scolded Fang Chen. How utterly embarrassing. She stammered, "I'm sorry, junior brother Fang. I didn't know it was you. If I had, I would not dare do such a thing even if you gave me 10 guts." The junior sister, standing nearby, was stunned. In her memory, senior sister Qin never showed such a coy, girlish demeanor. Who was this masked man, that he could make her act so shy and flustered? Noticing the strange gazes being thrown their way from all around, she whispered a reminder, senior sister, let's get down to official business first." Qin Caihe snapped back to her senses, her face turning even redder. She had acted far too unseemly in front of everyone, and awkwardly returned to her seat behind the table. She snatched the registration ledger and personally wrote Fang Chen's name on it, stroke by stroke, meticulous and careful. After finishing the registration, her face was filled with concern. "Junior brother Fang, you must have had a tiring journey, right?" Fang Chen said, "It was all right. I came to participate in the Sword Forest event with the Grand Elder of Heihuan sect. With her protection along the way, I encountered no danger." Qin Caihe said guiltily, "Junior brother Fang is so talented, yet still so diligent. You even did not forget to complete a mission while coming to participate in the Sword Forest. This senior sister is ashamed to compare herself to you." The junior sister blinked, 3 giant question marks popping up above her head as she mumbled, "Senior sister, didn't you just say this is free riding, taking advantage? How come when it's junior brother Fang, it's diligence, and you are even ashamed to compare? Why?" Qin Caihe immediately clapped a hand over her mouth, looking as if she wanted to smother the girl on the spot. Her face flushed once more as she said sheepishly, "Junior brother Fang, don't listen to this girl's nonsense. I never said that, absolutely not." At that moment, she was so embarrassed she could have dug a 3-room apartment into the ground with her toes. Fang Chen found it amusing, but did not take it to heart. Instead, he said solemnly, "Senior sister Qin, I wish to ask you about something. Submitting the mission is only a secondary matter. The most important thing is to meet that Grand Elder Zhou Qidan." Qin Caihe nodded repeatedly. Speak your mind, junior brother." Fang Chen said, "May I ask if your esteemed sect has a Grand Elder named Zhou Qidan?" Qin Caihe said gravely, "We indeed do. Why do you ask, junior brother Fang?" So the person actually existed. It seemed that old man had not been talking complete nonsense after all. Fang Chen said, "If I wish to visit this Grand Elder, will it be very difficult?" Qin Caihe was taken aback, then her face showed a troubled expression. "I'm afraid you won't be able to see her. Even we rarely get the chance to meet her." Fang Chen was not too surprised by this. Even in Qingyun sect, he could barely meet his own sect's Grand Elders. Why would a Grand Elder of an external sect be accessible to a low-ranking disciple like him whenever he wished? Unless he was a Grand Elder of some sect himself, that was. After a moment of thoughtful silence, Fang Chen said, "Then can you pass along a message for me? Tell her I wish to strike a deal with her concerning demonic beast materials." Qin Caihe still looked very troubled. Although during the days she spent with Fang Chen, he had indeed obtained a lot of good items, those were only good compared to ordinary disciples like them. To a Grand Elder, those things were practically worthless. This was the only thing she could do to help Fang Chen, so she gritted her teeth and said, "All right, I'll take you to meet my master first. A lowly disciple like me has no qualifications to contact a Grand Elder directly." In truth, Qin Caihe had not the slightest confidence that she could convince her master to help. After all, it sounded extremely beneath an elder's dignity to help a low-ranking disciple from another sect contact their own Grand Elder. She could only try her best. Qin Caihe set aside the work in her hands and led Fang Chen up to Cloud Sword Peak. The two had just reached the peak when they heard a woman's sharp, stern rebuke. "You two still have the face to come back. The first grade mission you executed on the giant sect front line, none of you completed it, you all failed. All the disciples sent by the other peaks succeeded." Fang Chen paused in his steps, sweeping his gaze across the peak. He saw a woman in a silk skirt, around 40 years old, berating 2 female disciples kneeling on the ground. One of them was crying piteously, tears streaming down her face, while the other bit her lip tightly, her face full of grievance and unwillingness. "It seems we have come at a bad time," Fang Chen said, glancing sideways at Qin Caihe. Yet she spotted Qin Caihe hunching her neck, stepping backward down the stone steps. Given the tense atmosphere before her, how dared she go forward and court misfortune? Their master was already notoriously strict on ordinary days, scolding errant disciples at the slightest provocation, let alone now when she was consumed by rage. But the peak master of Cloud Sword Peak twitched her ear and immediately detected the faint movement. She snapped sharply, "Who goes there?" Qin Caihe's face drained of all color. She had no choice but to summon all her courage and walk up the steps, revealing her figure. She kept her head bowed low and spoke with extreme caution. "Disciple Qin Caihe greets master." The Cloud Sword Peak master grew even more furious at the sight of her and roared, "What are you doing skulking around? You have not an ounce of propriety. Come over here at once and kneel properly before me." Qin Caihe's face twisted with bitter resignation. She had known she would court bad luck. She obediently walked over, hunching her neck, and knelt in front of her 2 senior sisters. Before she could even offer an explanation, the Cloud Sword Peak master berated her harshly without mercy. Speak the truth. Where have you been all these days? You were assigned a mere Tier 3 mission, yet you spent half a month on it. If you had returned any later, I would have already reported to the sect that you perished out in the wilderness." With her drawing all of their master's wrath, the other two senior sisters finally got a chance to catch their breath. They glanced secretly at Qin Caihe, their faces showing unmistakable schadenfreude. The two of them had failed a Tier 1 mission, which was excusable. After all, the front lines were riddled with dangers, the battle situation shifted unpredictably, and failed missions were a common occurrence. But taking half a month to complete a Tier 3 mission was simply absurd. If anyone claimed she had not slacked off, who would possibly believe it? Qin Caihe hastily explained, "Master, this disciple has been executing missions diligently and conscientiously all this time, and has never slacked off or cut corners. After finishing the mission from the Supreme Sect to the Spirit Beast Sect, this disciple immediately took on another mission from the Spirit Beast Sect to the Joyous Sect. On top of that, I encountered many perils along the way, which is why I was delayed until now." The Cloud Sword Peak Master's frosty countenance shifted slightly, her eyebrows lifting in surprise. "You actually managed to receive a mission from the Spirit Beast Sect." The two senior sisters curled their lips in disdain. What a blatant, unplanned lie. With Qin Caihe's strength, she could at most handle Tier 3 missions, and even the Spirit Beast Sect did not have enough of these low-rank missions to assign to their own low-level disciples. Why would they give any to an outsider? Qin Caihe nodded firmly and said, "This disciple would not dare lie to you." The Cloud Sword Peak Master looked puzzled. "Did Ling Jing help you secure it?" These words made the two senior sisters freeze for a moment, before they immediately turned even more disdainful. They had nearly forgotten that Qin Caihe had curried favor with a powerhouse at the 7th layer of the Foundation establishment realm from their own sect. That man was fully capable of accepting a Tier 2 mission from the Spirit Beast Sect, and it was entirely possible that he brought Qin Caihe along on the way and split some of the credit with her. What confused them was that at the mention of Ling Jing, Qin Caihe's face twisted with open contempt. "Him? I am lucky enough not to have been killed by him. How could I ever expect him to help me?" When she thought of how Ling Jing's arrogant recklessness had led them to be surrounded by vicious black lotuses, her anger still had not abated in the slightest. Now the Cloud Sword Peak Master grew genuinely curious. "Then what mission did you execute for the Spirit Beast Sect?" Qin Caihe felt a sharp twinge of guilt and mumbled, "It was a Tier 1 mission." She had done practically nothing on that mission, relying entirely on Fang Chen to crush all obstacles along the way to complete it, so she spoke with no confidence whatsoever. As soon as the words left her mouth, the Cloud Sword Peak Master's face turned icy cold to the bone, her shoulders shaking with uncontained rage. "Are the three of you trying to anger me to death? Two of you who are fully capable of completing Tier 1 missions both failed, while the one who cannot complete them spouts nothing but lies. The glorious reputation of my Cloud Sword Peak has been completely ruined by the three of you." She trembled with fury, her chest heaving violently, and she pointed a shaking finger at the two older female disciples. "Chen Tingfang, Sun Hurong, the two of you get back to your cultivation cave immediately and meditate in seclusion to reflect on your mistakes. As for you, Qin Caihe, you have slacked off on your duties and lied to your superior. Your crimes are unforgivable. Get yourself to the Hall of Reward and Punishment this instant, and receive 100 lashes as punishment." Qin Caihe panicked and blurted out, "Master, this disciple is not lying. A junior brother from another sect branch led this disciple to complete that Tier 1 mission." But the more she explained, the angrier the Cloud Sword Peak Master grew. A junior brother from another sect branch. Where did such a kind-hearted bodhisattva come from, who would be nice enough to help you complete a Tier 1 mission, and he is a junior brother at that? What heaven-sent genius from which sect can complete a Tier 1 mission at such a young age and bring you along? You do not even bother to make your lies believable. Are you deliberately trying to anger me to death? Get to the Hall of Reward and Punishment right now, and receive an extra 100 lashes. She was so furious, she felt her lungs would burst. If Qin Caihe had even told a halfway believable lie, she would have gritted her teeth and let it pass, but this lie was full of gaping holes, and trying to fool her with it was treating her like a mindless fool. Below the steps, Fang Chen, who had also originally intended to avoid courting misfortune, could no longer stay hidden. He had no choice but to take off his mask to reveal his true face, summon all his courage to walk up, and cupped his fists in a formal greeting. Fang Chen, disciple of Green Cloud Peak, greets Peak Master of Cloud Sword Peak. Seeing a disciple from another peak arrive unexpectedly, the Cloud Sword Peak Master forcefully reined in her fury, putting on as calm and amiable a demeanor as possible to avoid gaining a reputation for being hot, tempered among other sect branches. "You have come to visit my peak. Do you have business here?" she asked as she sized Fang Chen up carefully. A vague sense of familiarity stirred at the mention of this name. Fang Chen spoke frankly, reporting to the Peak Master, "This disciple has come to testify on behalf of senior sister Qin." The Cloud Sword Peak Master froze. Testify to what? Fang Chen let out a bitter laugh to speak plainly with the Peak Master. "This disciple is the so-called living bod, Hisattva you mentioned earlier." The Cloud Sword Peak Master looked Fang Chen up and down, her face filled with doubt as she gazed at his impossibly young features. "You managed to accept a first-rank mission from the Spirit Beast sect, and even completed it alongside my disciple." Her suspicion was not unwarranted. Scanning all 9 great sects, there was no other heaven, blessed prodigy of such youth and prowess aside from Zia Keoj of the Taisheng sect. Fang Chen nodded. "That is correct." The Cloud Sword Peak Master frowned, pondering whether this young man was lying. Until the 2 kneeling female disciples whispered to each other, Fang Chen of Qingyun sect, "Is that the disciple with no spiritual roots? He can accept first-rank missions now. How absurd this world has become." A sharp buzz rang in her mind, and the Cloud Sword Peak Master finally recalled why Fang Chen's name sounded so familiar. It was him. The Cloud Sword Peak Master let out a scoffing, angry laugh. "You have quite the nerve, daring to stand before this Peak Master to give false testimony for my unruly disciple. You will not leave here. Either I shall send word to your Qingyun sect, demand they give an explanation, and then take you away. You are simply lawless." A mere low-ranking disciple, daring to mock her like this. He was showing her complete and utter disrespect. Fang Chen spoke calmly and unhurriedly. "Cloud Sword Peak Master, what makes you so certain I am giving false testimony?" Seeing that Fang Chen still refused to concede, the Cloud Sword Peak Master sneered. "What, you intend to tell me you truly did accept a first-rank mission from the Spirit Beast sect? Sect Master Gong cannot be so blind as to entrust a first-rank mission to you, can he?" Fang Chen replied flatly. "Sect Master Gong naturally possesses exceptional judgment. The same cannot be said for you, Cloud Sword Peak Master." Insolence, the Cloud Sword Peak Master huffed coldly, daring to mock this elder as blind. "If I do not teach you a lesson, you will never learn to hold your tongue." Whoosh! She raised her hand and flicked a finger, sending a surge of powerful spiritual power shooting from her fingertip, carrying with it an unstoppable sword kai that hurtled through the air toward Fang Chen. Qin Caihe was taken aback by fright and cried out, "Junior brother, run." The 2 senior sisters were also greatly shocked. Their master was truly enraged to attack a junior like this. At the very least, his body would be torn straight through by that finger strike, infused with sword kai. Fang Chen showed no trace of fear. He drew the Eishuang sword from its sheath in a single fluid motion, unleashing the heaven and earth starfall technique. The crisp, clean sword strike boomed like thunder, and powerful sword kai swept out in an explosive surge. The casual finger strike sword kai from the Cloud Sword Peak Master was shattered on the spot by the sword art channeled through the high, raid magical artifact. The sudden explosion jolted the unprepared Cloud Sword Peak Master, and her ice gold countenance was instantly replaced by shock. That previous finger strike was only a casual blow, not particularly powerful, but it was by no means something a Foundation, Establishment realm disciple could fend off. At the very least, her 2 beloved kneeling disciples could never have blocked it. This renowned Fang Chen had actually blocked it. Did that not mean he truly possessed the strength to carry out a first-rank mission? Fang Chen sheathed his sword and cupped his hands in salute. "This disciple apologizes for the offense. I implore the Cloud Sword Peak Master to stop wrongfully accusing senior sister Qin." The Cloud Sword Peak Master snapped back to her senses, her expression shifting repeatedly. So the so-called living Bodhisattva, the heaven-defying prodigy, truly existed. She asked with lingering doubt. "You did not encounter any danger along the way, did you?" She still remained skeptical of Fang Chen's strength. Completing a first-rank mission was likely just a stroke of luck. If he encountered a genuine major threat, he might not be able to withstand it. Fang Chen nodded. "Fortunately, we had decent luck and encountered no great peril. Compared to facing Leng Gu, all the previous dangers were child's play." The Cloud Sword Peak Master nodded slightly. As expected, it was all down to luck. She said, "Luck is also a part of strength. My disciple gained an unearned 100 merit points by following you, so this elder will not treat you poorly. I see you practice sword cultivation, so I shall give you some guidance on swordplay later." As a major sect focused entirely on the sword path, the sword art attainments of the elders of the 10,000 Swords Sect were naturally exceptionally profound. Receiving their guidance was a fortuitous opportunity that could not be bought with any amount of wealth. But Qin Caihe corrected her upon hearing this. "Master, it is not 100 merit points, but a full 400 merit points." "How many The dismissive expression on the Cloud Sword Peak Master's face was instantly replaced by stark horror. 400. Are you certain you are not mistaken? A standard first-tier mission only rewards 100 merit points. How could Qin Caihe possibly have obtained 400? Qin Caihe explained, reporting to Master, Junior Brother Fang executed the mission to escort the 1,000 live vulture, which comes with additional reward bonuses. Upon learning it was the 1,000 live vulture escort mission, the Cloud Sword Peak Master suddenly understood, a look of astonishment crossing her face. Sect Master Gong actually assigned this most critical first-tier mission to you. That is truly beyond expectation. What is even more shocking is that you had such fortune to deliver it safely all the way. By rights, this mission requires at least one elder to lead the team. Gong Caihe actually dared to assign it to a low-ranked disciple to carry out alone. I cannot fathom what she was thinking. Fortunately, Fang Chen had extraordinary luck and encountered no perils along the way. Qin Caihe corrected with a bitter smile, Master, do not believe Junior Brother Fang's humble words. We encountered no small number of perils along the way. First, when crossing the raging river, we were besieged by red-scaled evil flood dragons, then hunted down by a fully grown red-scaled evil flood dragon. Were it not for Junior Brother Fang's profound strength and endless array of techniques, we would have long perished in the river's depths. Hiss, the Cloud Sword Peak Master was secretly alarmed. They had actually encountered a swarm of red-scaled evil flood dragons. Even she would struggle to protect herself if she met them in the river, and there was a fully grown one among them, making the situation even more unfathomably dangerous. Just as she was about to speak words of gratitude, Qin Caihe spoke again, still trembling with lingering fear, but that was not the greatest danger. The most perilous moment was when we were targeted by a mid-stage Golden Core Realm Silver-Winged Thunderbird. The Cloud Sword Peak Master let out a shocked low gasp. Silver-Winged Thunderbird? You actually encountered a Silver-Winged Thunderbird? How did you survive? Her face was filled with disbelief. Silver-winged thunderbirds are ferocious, cunning avian demonic beasts, and few prey targeted by them ever manage to escape. Even she, as the Cloud Sword Peak Master, would be far more likely to perish than survive if she faced a silver-winged thunderbird alone. Qin Caihe looked toward Fang Chen, her eyes filled with reverence, and said, naturally it was Junior Brother Fang who displayed his divine might, severed one of its claws, and frightened it away. The Cloud Sword Peak Master's eyes widened, her face etched with horror as she stared at Fang Chen. This young man could actually wound a silver-winged thunderbird. Is that something a mere disciple is capable of? Master, can I get up now? Qin Caihe, whose knees had gone numb from kneeling, thumped her sore legs lightly. The Cloud Sword Peak Master snapped back to her senses and said, what are you still kneeling for? She had completely and utterly wronged this disciple of hers. Not only had she not been slacking off, she had gone and befriended a monstrous young genius. This was beneficial both to her own personal future and to the future of the entire Cloud Sword Peak. With this thought in mind, she stepped forward and personally helped Qin Caihe to her feet. The Cloud Sword Peak Master spoke in an apologetic tone. It is your master's fault for wronging you. You are far more capable than your two senior sisters. The two senior sisters kneeling on the ground heard this and immediately protested unconvinced. Master, it was not Junior Sister who completed the mission. She only finished it relying on Junior Brother Fang's help. The word jealousy was plainly written all over their faces. Why should she get special treatment? Just because she curried favor with Fang Chen, she gets to be above us. The Cloud Sword Peak Master snorted coldly. Who is stopping you from finding a backer? If you have the ability, go find an expert like young Master Fang to assist you too. All of you get back to your cultivation caves at once and reflect deeply on your own shortcomings. With that said, she turned to Qin Caihe and smiled warmly. Come to my secret chamber later, and I will give you proper guidance on your cultivation. Qin Caihe was overwhelmed by this unexpected favor. This was a privilege only her two senior sisters had enjoyed before. As a disciple of ordinary aptitude, she could only look on with envy in the past. Thank you, Master, Qin Caihe said joyfully. But she did not forget the purpose of their visit, and said, Master, Junior Brother Fang came this time too. She wanted to take advantage of the current positive atmosphere to bring up their request, thinking her master would likely be too embarrassed to refuse. However, Fang Chen raised an eyebrow, cut her off in time, and spoke first. This disciple actually came specifically to pay a visit to the Cloud Sword Peak Master. As he spoke, he took a black wooden box from his sleeve. A trivial gift. I hope it finds favor with you. Cloud Sword Peak Master chuckled in amusement as she took it. A greeting gift even. There is no need for such formalities between us, young Master Fang. You would not have come to my peak unless you have a favor to ask. State your business first. Given how greatly you have assisted my disciple, I will help you if the matter is within my capabilities. Who among those who have attained the position of a sect elder is not a shrewd, worldly individual? Seeing that she had accepted the gift, Fang Chen knew the time had come to speak. He cupped his hands in salute and said, I wish to pay a visit to your sect's Grand Elder Zhou Qidan. Could the Peak Master be so kind as to pass along my request for an audience? The Cloud Sword Peak Master frowned, thought for a brief moment, then handed the wooden box back. I cannot help you with this. Grand Elder Zhou is currently in seclusion, and no one is permitted to disturb her. As a mere ordinary elder, she did not have the courage to anger a Grand Elder. Fang Chen said, Why don't the Peak Master take a look at what is inside the wooden box first? The Cloud Sword Peak Master let out a cold laugh. What rare treasures had she not seen in her lifetime? Would she possibly be tempted by a gift from a young disciple enough to risk incurring the wrath of a Grand Elder? She tossed the wooden box back into Fang Chen's arms. With a look of regret, Fang Chen opened the box, revealing a fist-sized orb prepared inside, surrounded by wispy gusts of wind. It was none other than the demonic core of that Black Hawk demonic beast. Beast King demonic cores have always been extremely rare on the market. It was only recently, with the Beast Tide invasion, that the occasional one has entered circulation. The moment one appears, it becomes the target of a frantic bidding war among cultivators. What is more, aerial fierce avians like the Black Hawk are exceptionally difficult to slay, making their cores even rarer. The moment the box was opened, the Cloud Sword Peak Master was taken aback, and she gasped softly, a Beast King demonic core. And of wind attribute no less. This type of demonic core is a top-grade material for forging movement talismans and magical artifacts worth a fortune. If it were put up for sale, it would be bought immediately for an exorbitant sum. A rough estimate puts its value at no less than tens of thousands of spirit stones. She had just returned such a valuable gift. Young Master Fang has had quite the fruitful journey to have even obtained such a demonic core. Your luck is truly remarkable, the Cloud Sword Peak Master said in an envious tone, her gaze unable to tear itself away from the demonic core, no matter how hard she tried. The longer she looked, the more she regretted her earlier decision. Why didn't I look inside first before making a decision? For a demonic core like this, even being scolded by Grand Elder Zhou Qidan would be worth it. Fang Chen took in every shift of her expression, smiled, and pressed the wooden box into the Peak Master's palm. This was only possible thanks to your great fortune, Peak Master. I only managed to slay this hawk with the assistance of your exceptionally trained disciple. This demonic core rightfully belongs to you. This junior merely kept it safe for you. Now it is returned to its rightful owner. Please keep it, Peak Master. How could the Cloud Sword Peak Master not see that Fang Chen was giving her a face, saving way to accept the gift again? His words were so appropriate and well spoken that she felt no awkwardness at all. While she was pleased, she also secretly marveled at how exceptionally skilled this young man was at navigating social customs. His grasp of human relationships was truly masterful. She stared deeply at Fang Chen for a moment, then nodded and said, Though the demonic core is not the most precious of treasures, your sincere intention is priceless. This elder shall accept it. Now that she had accepted the gift, it was time to fulfill her end of the bargain. She put away the demonic core without showing any outward emotion and said, You have done my disciple a great favor, earning her a full 400 merit points. This elder shall take you to Grand Elder Zhou's secluded chamber. However, this elder is only responsible for passing along your request. Whether she agrees to meet you or not is beyond my control. A weight lifted off Fang Chen's chest. That is only natural. Qin Caihe, who had been watching the entire exchange, was so shocked her eyes nearly popped out of her head. She could clearly see that her master had been extremely unwilling to disturb the Grand Elder, and the help Fang Chen had given her had not been enough to sway her master at all. But Fang Chen was so adept at handling human relationships that her master had no way to resist, ultimately conceding. This man was not only immensely powerful, but also had exceptionally high emotional intelligence. He was simply unbeatable. A short while later, they arrived in front of a dust-covered, secluded chamber in the back mountain. The Cloud Sword Peak Master stood before the door for a long while, not daring to step forward, even showing signs of wanting to retreat. Fang Chen observed the area around the secluded chamber, noting the half-foot-thick layer of dust, and felt a slight sense of awe. As a Grand Elder, the area outside her door should have been cleaned daily by disciples. The reason it was covered in dust could only be that this Grand Elder hated being disturbed, and had explicitly forbidden anyone from coming here. That was the reason the Cloud Sword Peak Master did not dare to knock on the door. Fang Chen rolled his eyes inwardly. She had already accepted the gift. Did she still intend to back out? He subtly patted the little Qilin on the head. The slumbering little Qilin woke up abruptly, letting out a disgruntled whimper. Though the sound was not loud, it was exceptionally clear in the dead silence outside the secluded chamber. An annoyed, aged voice immediately came from inside the secluded chamber. Who is making that racket out there? Cloud Sword Peakmaster jumped in fright and had no choice but to steel herself and step forward. She addressed the stone door respectfully. This junior is the Cloud Sword Peakmaster. Greetings, Grand Elder Zhou. Only when they learned it was the Peakmaster of Cloud Sword Peak did the disgruntled voice from behind the stone gate soften slightly, though it remained frigid. So it is Qiu Shengnan. Qiu Shengnan's heart thundered like a war drum in her chest, and regret for coming here grew ever stronger in the depths of her soul. But matters had already reached this point, and she had no choice. She spoke hesitantly, reporting to Supreme Elder Zhou Fang Chen, a disciple of Azure Cloud Peak, wishes to pay his respects to you. We have come specially to disturb your seclusion. Rumble hardly had the words left her mouth when the stone gate burst open, and a wave of turbid, stinking air slammed into their faces, nearly making Fang Chen retch violently. Upon closer inspection, an old woman sat cross-legged in the cramped secret chamber. Her robes were rotted away, and wild, unkempt white hair wrapped around half of her body. Her facial features were indistinguishable, caked in thick layers of grime from years without bathing. The repugnant stench rolling off her was so foul that even a street beggar would be cleaner than her. Just how many years had she been in seclusion? No one dared to underestimate her, for she was the peerless expert of 10,000 Swords Sect, whose strength was second only to Zhu Qidan, and she was infamous for her fiery, explosive temper. The moment the gate opened, flames of rage burned in her eyes as she unleashed a torrent of scolding. Qiu Shengnan, you have grown quite bold, running errands for some trivial disciple from outside sect. You have disgraced the entire Cloud Sword Peak. I will summon your master, Supreme Elder Sun, at once, and ask him to his face exactly how he trains his disciples.
Qiu Shengnan's mouth filled with a bitter taste. This Supreme Elder Zhou was the most difficult person to provoke in the entire sect.
Had she lost her mind to dare disturb her seclusion, now things could not be worse. Once her master Supreme Elder Sun was summoned, her humiliation would be known to every last member of the sect. Fang Chen clicked his tongue silently in astonishment. This Supreme Elder's temper was indeed as ferocious as rumored, but having gone through so much trouble to meet her, he had no intention of backing down. He cupped his fists in salute and said, Supreme Elder Zhou, this junior is Fang Chen of the Azure Cloud Sect. I have long heard of your illustrious reputation, and have come to boldly pay my respects to you. Zhou Qidan cast a sidelong glance at him, and completely ignored him. As a dignified Supreme Elder, she naturally disdained to acknowledge a trivial junior, especially one who had disturbed her seclusion. The only reason she had not scolded him alongside Qiu Shengnan was out of consideration for his status as an outside sect disciple, to avoid souring the amicable relations between their two sects. Had he been a disciple of her own sect, she would have already torn him to shreds with verbal abuse. Fang Chen was not surprised in the slightest. The gulf between their statuses was as vast as the heavens and the earth, so it would have been absurd for her to acknowledge him easily. He continued to hold his salute and said, This junior offers his most sincere apologies for disturbing your seclusion, senior. However, I heard that you have recently been collecting demonic beast materials, and this disciple has come into possession of some related gains. I thus dare to ask you to appraise them for me. He did not mention anything about a trade. The other party was a Supreme Elder. She would never debase herself to strike a deal with a junior, unless the value of the item in question was first proven beyond doubt. A flicker of surprise crossed Zhou Qidan's face, and she let out a mocking laugh. It seems I underestimated you. The number of people in the entire 10,000 Swords Sect who know I am collecting demonic beast materials can be counted on one hand. You are remarkably well connected to have dug up this confidential piece of information. She had only disclosed this matter to a handful of other Supreme Elders and no one else. That this boy had gotten wind of it filled her with no small amount of astonishment. Even so, what right did some random outer sect junior have to disturb her seclusion just to have her appraise some demonic beast materials? Her face turned icy as she rejected him without hesitation, but this elder has no interest, just as she finished speaking. As if sensing something, she swept her gaze across Qiu Shengnan's chest, and her face lit up with surprise, the demonic core of a white-headed black eagle. Boy, is this the thing you used to bribe Qiu Shengnan? Qiu Shengnan was shocked to her core. She had been found out. She took out a black wooden box, offered it up with a heart full of bitterness, and dared not hide a thing. This disciple knows her mistake. Please punish me as you see fit, Supreme Elder. Zhou Qidan took the box and opened it. A glint of light flashed in her eyes. This core was still fresh, harvested from a beast killed not long ago, so its value would be even higher. On the open market, it would sell for no less than 60 zero spirit stones. You have certainly spent a hefty sum just to get an audience with this Supreme Elder. As she spoke, she tossed the demonic core into her robes, effectively confiscating it. Qin Caihe was like someone who had bitten down on a bitter gold thread root, unable to voice her suffering. She had endured a torrential scolding, was about to have her master summoned, and now the bribe she had received was confiscated. There was nowhere she could go to plead her case. The corner of Fang Chen's mouth twitched. She had just seized that demonic core right in front of him, without even the slightest pretense. But this worked out even better. It confirmed that Supreme Elder Zhou Qidan was indeed gathering demonic beast materials. This junior has even more valuable materials. I ask that you appraise them for me, Senior, Fang Chen said. Zhou Qidan finally grew interested. Even his stepping stone was an immensely valuable Beast King demonic core. Could this boy actually have some decent demonic beast materials on him? After a moment of thought, she changed her mind and nodded. Very well. This Supreme Elder will make an exception and appraise these items for you, you little outsider brat. Bring them out. Unrushed and unhurried, Fang Chen first took out a scarlet-colored demonic core. Zhou Qidan's face remained expressionless as she nodded slowly. The demonic core of a fully grown red-scaled vicious flood dragon. It is also fresh. This beast is no easy quarry to slay. She cast a meaningful glance at Fang Chen, growing curious. Where had Fang Chen gotten this core? It could not possibly be him who killed the beast, could it? But it was equally unrealistic to say he had found it by chance. Any cultivator, powerful enough to kill an adult red-scaled vicious flood dragon, would never leave its demonic core behind for some boy to stumble upon. If you sold this demonic core on the market, you would get around 40 to 50 spirit stones. It is actually worth less than the one you bribed Qin Caihe with. Zhou Qidan spoke with a teasing lilt, her implicit meaning being that Fang Chen had traded a watermelon for a sesame seed, prioritizing the lesser gain over the greater. Fang Chen nodded in understanding, then took out a jade box inscribed with runes. What about this one? Inside the jade box rested a demonic core the size of an infant's fist, crackling with arcs of lightning all over its surface. Zhou Qidan's expression shifted slightly. The demonic core of a silver-winged thunderbird. It is also fresh. Where did you get this? She could no longer hold back her curiosity. Zhou Qidan voiced the doubt in her heart. Core after core, all harvested not long ago, and this one in front of me is even the core of a silver-winged thunderbird at the middle golden core realm. Slaying this beast is far more difficult than killing the white-headed black eagle. No matter how I look at it, there is no way a trivial junior like Fang Chen could have killed it, is there? Fang Chen dared not reveal the source, and answered vaguely. I obtained it by chance. Sensing that Fang Chen was hiding the truth, Zhou Qidan was still filled with curiosity, but she could only hold back her questions for the time being. This time a hint of approval crossed her face as she said, "This is an exceptional item, the finest material for forging lightning, attribute magical artifacts. Even many Supreme Elders have need of it. Do not sell it in haste. Wait until you find a suitable buyer." She offered this sincere, well-meant advice. But it was obvious that she herself had no personal interest in this particular item. Fang Chen nodded and took out another jade casket. Zhou Qidan perked up, exclaiming in astonishment, "You still have more? Where did this boy get so many demon cores? That's 4 already, and each one is worth more than the last." She stared intently, spotting a demon core emanating purplish, black toxic Kai inside the sealed jade casket, and could not help but startle. This is the demon core of a copper-scaled black centipede. And it is still fresh. Could this boy have returned from the front lines of the giant sect? All battles at the current front lines are waged at the Foundation establishment realm level, with no large-scale appearances of Beast Kings reported yet. Where could he have gotten so many Beast King-grade demon cores? Furthermore, this 4th demon core is the exceedingly rare core of a kappa-scaled black centipede. This beast is incomparably ferocious, unspeakably cruel, and excels at burrowing underground and lurking. Among human cultivators, only those at the late Golden Core realm have absolute certainty of slaying it. Where on earth did you get these? She could not help but ask again, but cut herself off mid-sentence, knowing full well Fang Chen would not give an honest answer. Staring at this demon core, her eyes were filled with amazement. This should be the highest grade demon core that has appeared since the start of the beast tide. It is worth no less than 3 100 zeros, 0. Spirit stones. If a cultivator who practices poison cultivation techniques wants it, the price will be even higher. You have struck a massive fortune. Qiu Shengnan, standing nearby, was stunned speechless. 300 0 spirit stones, plus the other cores. This boy's net worth was no less than 500 0 spirit stones, richer than even her, a sect elder.
Fang Chen saw that Zhou Qidan showed no sign of being tempted and sighed to himself. As expected, it was unbelievably difficult to win over a Grand Elder. Fortunately, he still had one final trump card up his sleeve. Zhou Qidan stared at Fang Chen with a deeply meaningful look on her face. Boy, you have certainly broadened this Grand Elder's horizons. A mere low-ranking disciple actually has so many fresh demon cores. I must warn you, never show these to outsiders again. This Grand Elder would never rob you, but others may not be so principled.
Fang Chen thought to himself, she is not that bad after all. In truth, this was only because Zhou Qidan did not think much of these demon cores.
If there was something she truly coveted, she might not rob him, but she would certainly find a way to keep it for herself.
He cupped his hands in salute. Thank you for your guidance, senior.
Zhou Qidan nodded slowly. If you have no other business, leave the mountain as soon as possible. With that, she was about to close the stone door when Fang Chen was taken aback and said, Senior, you have not finished looking at all the demon cores yet.
Qiu Shengnan's eyes widened in shock, and she blurted out, You have more.
Even Zhou Qidan choked and coughed several times, both shocked and annoyed. You rascal, how many demon cores do you have? She could not help but feel envious.
Where on earth did this boy get so many demon cores? Could it be that a rain of demon cores fell from the sky, and he just happened to be there to catch it?
She said huffily, Take it out and let me see. She was growing curious.
The last one was already the shockingly rare copper-scaled black centipede core. Could he possibly take out a late golden core realm demon core this time?
Those at the late golden core realm in the 9 sects domain are either sect leaders or great elders. Demonic beasts of this level are also top-tier existences among their kind, ranking at least among the top 100 strongest. There are barely a handful of human powerhouses capable of slaying them, let alone leaving their demon cores behind for this boy to pick up.
That was completely impossible. It is most likely just another mid-golden core realm demon core.
Fang Chen did not dally and immediately took out a black jade casket covered entirely with sealing talismans. It was impossible to tell what was inside from the outside, making it extremely mysterious. Zhou Qidan took the black jade casket, tore off the talismans, and opened it. Her clouded old eyes suddenly widened to their full size, and she froze in shock. A 9th layer golden core realm demon core. She rubbed her eyes in disbelief, staring at this demon core the size of an eyeball, several times smaller than an ordinary beast king core, unable to believe what she was seeing for a long time. What 9th layer golden core? Qiu Shengnan shot over at once, paying no mind to the rules of seniority, and craned her neck to look inside the jade casket. She immediately felt the ferocious aura emanating from inside the casket, which sent an inexplicable chill to the core of her heart, even though she was at the mid-golden core realm, as if an extremely terrifying Beast King was manifesting right in front of her. Where did this come from? Qiu Shengnan swallowed hard, asking the question that was burning in her heart. Fang Chen gave a casual perfunctory reply. I picked it up. Zhou Qidan's breathing grew ragged, and her gaze towards Fang Chen was extremely complicated as she said, You picked up the demon core of Cold Bone, one of the 10 great generals under the demon Emperor. Qiu Shengnan drew a sharp breath and cried out in shock This is Cold Bone's demon core. It has fallen. Who killed it? How did its core end up in your hands? Fang Chen's face remained expressionless, and he was of course not foolish enough to answer. He said, Senior, what do you think of this demon core? Zhou Qidan held the black jade casket in her hands, unconcealable longing burning in her eyes. A top-tier demon core like this might not appear even once after the entire beast tide ends. She could never hope to find a better demon core, and now that it was right in front of her, there was no way she would let it go. After hesitating for a moment, she spoke. Boy, this Grand Elder wishes to purchase this core. If you are willing, I will offer you 1 million spirit stones. What do you say? 1 million. Qiu Shengnan was struck by a wave of dizziness. Countless small sects did not even possess such a vast hoard of spirit stones. With this single demonic core, Fang Chen would have enough wealth to establish his own sect. Yet Fang Chen refused, saying, This junior is willing to part with this cherished treasure. Zhou Qidan nodded slightly, showing no great joy. 1 million spirit stones were her entire life savings. How could she feel happy spending all of it on this single demonic core? This was nothing more than an exchange of equal value, with no gain or loss to speak of. Fang Chen's next words left Zhou Qidan stunned once more. However, this junior has no need for spirit stones. I wish to trade for a single item in senior's possession. You do not want spirit stones. A weight lifted off Zhou Qidan's chest, and delight flickered in her eyes. Then what do you seek? None of the items on her person were worth the sky high price of 1,000,000 spirit stones, after all. Fang Chen drew a deep breath, revealing his ultimate goal. This junior walks the path of body refinement, and is currently stuck at a bottleneck. I require the vial of venomous dragon marrow in senior's hands. If senior is willing, this junior will trade this demonic core for the venomous dragon marrow. Upon hearing that he sought this item, the faint delight that had just bloomed on Zhou Qidan's face vanished in an instant. She hesitated for a long while, as if weighing the matter, before finally heaving a deep sigh and returning the cold bone demonic core to Fang Chen with immense reluctance. If only you had come a day or two earlier. Now it is too late. Such is the will of fate. Confusion crossed Fang Chen's face. Zhou Qidan had clearly been tempted by the offer, so why had she ultimately rejected it? Unwilling to give up, he asked, Senior, could it be that you have already given the venomous dragon marrow to another? Zhou Qidan stared at the demonic core in Fang Chen's hand, sighing repeatedly, more or less. Given is given, not given is not given. What in the world does more or less mean? Fang Chen asked, bewildered, is there no room for negotiation? Zhou Qidan shook her head, her expression full of regret. I have already promised to give this item to someone. I gave my word, and I cannot break faith. If only you had come a day or two earlier. Fang Chen rubbed his nose, a strange look crossing his face as he said, Senior, did you promise to give this item to a masked youth? Zhou Qidan froze, her gaze sharpening as she frowned. Who told you that? A thread of wariness glinted in her eyes. This matter was known only to her and Zhu Qingyang. How could this low-ranked outer sect junior disciple before her have learned of it? Fang Chen could not help but laugh and cry at the same time. That old man had acted surprisingly fast, and had already spoken to Zhou Qidan to arrange this. He took out the mask of the number 1 shadow guard, put it on his face, and said, because I am that youth. Even the ever-calm Zhou Qidan shot to her feet in utter shock. How can it be you? You could have simply come to take it directly. Why go through the unnecessary trouble of trading with me? She was completely bewildered. Fang Chen laughed. Matters that this junior can resolve on his own. I will not trouble seniors over. He truly did not wish to owe that old man a massive favor, for if he had to repay it one day, even a cold-bone demonic core might not be enough to settle the debt. Upon learning his reasoning, Zhou Qidan was left speechless for a moment. She found the matter absurd, yet also admired Fang Chen's character. In this day and age, all schemes and infighting revolved around profit, and people would fight to the death to seize any advantage they could. Those like Fang Chen were a rare minority. You have truly put yourself through much hardship. A trace of fondness crossed Zhou Qidan's face. She could well imagine how difficult it had been to obtain these demonic cores, and how much effort he had expended just to meet with her. Fang Chen smiled. It is no hardship, for both Senior and I will come out of this delighted. He stuffed the black jade case into Zhou Qidan's hand. Then our trade is settled, just like that. Zhou Qidan's mood was complex as she pulled a perfectly preserved jade vial from her sleeve. It contained half a vial of viscous black liquid, and even through the jade, one could feel an unsettling aura that induced waves of dizziness. This was the marrow of a demon emperor, tier venomous dragon, saturated with ferocious, deadly toxin. Zhou Qidan handed it to Fang Chen with no small amount of unease. He was only at the Foundation establishment realm, after all. The deadly poison in this vial of marrow was absolutely fatal to him, and the slightest misstep could cost him his life. After a moment of thought, she pulled out a yellowed, worn scripture scroll. Fine, in light of your sincere heart, I will gift this scripture to you. Cultivate it first, and once you have attained sufficient mastery, you may use the venomous dragon marrow. Fang Chen accepted the item in utter bewilderment. Why had he received an extra cultivation method as an unprompted gift? Since it was a complimentary bonus, he reasoned it was likely nothing particularly formidable. Qiu Shengnan also cast a curious glance its way, and that single glance made her pupils shrink violently. She cried out in horror, Elder Supreme Zhu, how can you do this? On the scroll's cover were several blurry characters, 9 Poisons True Sutra. Outsiders might not recognize what this was, but how could Qiu Shengnan possibly not know? She spoke urgently, Elder Supreme Zhu, this is your core cultivation method, and even more so the closely guarded secret art of our myriad sword sect. How can you pass it to an outsider? I would Have no objections no matter how many rewards you bestow upon Fang Chen. That is your prerogative as Elder Supreme, but the 9 Poisons True Sutra is the peerless cultivation method of Myriad Sword Sect on par with Zhu Qidan's sword control art. Even disciples of our own sect cannot cultivate it lightly, yet you would pass it to a complete outsider. This is utterly unfathomable. Fang Chen was stunned. Was this 9 Poisons True Sutra truly that precious? Myriad Sword Sect was a sword cultivator sect. Why would a poisoned scripture be revered as a closely guarded secret? He flipped open the title page, and a line of large characters leapt before his eyes. Fang Chen gasped in shock. Mid-earth grade cultivation method. He hastily returned the scroll, saying, I cannot accept this scripture. It is far too valuable. It was a complete mid-earth grade cultivation method. How dared he accept such a priceless treasure? Zhou Qidan shot Qiu Shengnan a sharp glare, then tossed the scripture to her. Closely guarded secret, is it? Do you dare cultivate it? Qiu Shengnan flinched away, as if it were a venomous scorpion, hurling it away immediately, not daring to touch it even for an instant. She said sheepishly, Elder Supreme Zhu jokes. Aside from you, no one can cultivate the 9 Poisons True Sutra. Cultivating this method not only required one to comprehend the true essence of the scripture, but also to consume and ingest lethal poisons. If one's comprehension of the scripture was insufficient, and the ingested poison could not be digested, death was all but guaranteed. Ever since this cultivation method was obtained, extremely few cultivators of Myriad Sword Sect have succeeded in mastering it. Most died a violent death midway through their cultivation. Zhou Qidan is the only remaining person alive who has successfully mastered this poison scripture. Who would dare cultivate this scripture recklessly? Zhou Qidan huffed, then what are you rambling about? Is this 9 Poisons True Sutra of any use to Myriad Sword Sect? Qiu Shengnan was left embarrassed and flustered by the scolding, not daring to say another word. Only then did Zhou Qidan turn to look at Fang Chen with a gentle expression, instructing him. Using the poison dragon marrow rashly will cost you your life. First spend several years comprehending the first layer of this scroll. This way, you can rely on the poison True Sutra to absorb the lethal poison within the marrow, tempering your physique while simultaneously cultivating a measure of poison art. It is a solution that benefits you in both regards. There is such a fortuitous opportunity. Fang Chen looked at the 9 Poisons True Sutra that had been stuffed back into his arms, feeling deeply grateful. However, with his level of comprehension, he would likely not need several years to master the 9 Poisons True Sutra. A single night would probably be more than enough. The transaction was completed smoothly. Fang Chen cupped his fists in salute. Thank you for bestowing the cultivation method upon me, senior. I wish you success in your artifact refining. Zhou Qidan said with a warm laugh, I also wish you great success in your body tempering art. If you encounter any points of confusion with the 9 Poisons True Sutra in the future, you may come find me. Fang Chen expressed his thanks. Thank you, senior. He then cupped his fists towards Qiu Shengnan. I also thank you for leading the way, Peak Master. Farewell, seniors. He descended the mountain, his harvests plentiful. Qiu Shengnan dared not stay alone in this place any longer, and also cupped her fists to take her leave, when unexpectedly a powerful aura came speeding towards them. Moments later, a haggard old man in linen robes with a rusted iron sword slung over his back arrived. Looking at Zhou Qidan, who had come out of seclusion, the old man exclaimed in shock, Elder Supreme Zhou, why have you left seclusion? Were you not at a critical juncture in your sword art? Comprehension. Elder Supreme Zhou had been at a critical point in her cultivation. Qiu Shengnan felt her vision go dark, and said tremblingly, Master, it was this disciple who disturbed the senior. The newcomer was none other than Qiu Shengnan's master, the former Cloud Sword Peak Master. Hearing this, his expression shifted drastically, and he berated her sharply. Have you lost your mind? Who gave you the audacity to disturb Elder Supreme Zhu's seclusion? Qiu Shengnan's face was full of bitter misery. Not daring to hide the truth, she said, this disciple was blinded by greed and disturbed Elder Supreme Zhu on someone else's behalf for the sake of a demon boat. What, you accepted a bribe and disturbed Zhou Qidan? Elder Supreme's son trembled with rage, raising his palm to teach her a lesson. Let it be. Zhou Qidan, who was in an excellent mood, took out the Black Eagle's demon core and tossed it back to Qiu Shengnan. She actually did me a great favor. The demonic beast materials I have been searching for ages are now complete, and I can forge the magical artifact I have been wanting. Elder Supreme's son was shocked. He knew Zhou Qidan was planning a major undertaking which had been delayed for several years due to a lack of materials. Now that she had made such significant progress, he said enviously, Congratulations, Elder Supreme Zhou. He then turned his gaze to Qiu Shengnan, his expression softening, and said, Do not do this again. In consideration of the fact that you accidentally rendered meritorious service, go to my abode later and pick several medicinal pills. Qiu Shengnan was overjoyed. Not only had she gotten her Black Eagle Demon core back, she had also received a reward from her own sect's Elder Supreme. She had turned misfortune into blessing and gained immensely. Qin Caihe was truly her lucky star. She would reward her handsomely later. Elder Supreme Son asked with a curious smile, "What kind of material did that person deliver to you?" Zhou Qidan made no attempt to conceal it, taking out the demonic core of Cold Bone. The moment this demonic core appeared, its terrifying demonic aura made Elder Grandson's expression turn grave. Could this be a demonic core from a late-stage Golden Core Realm demonic beast? Zhou Qidan clutched it reverently in her palm and said, "More than that. This is Cold Bone's very own demonic core." Elder Grandson sucked in a sharp breath. What kind of divine being could slay Cold Bone? In the entire 10,000 Swords Sect, only Zhu Qingyang is capable of killing him. Zhou Qidan's answer left him even more stunned. No divine being. He is just a young disciple of the Azure Cloud sect. Elder Grandson exclaimed in shock. A disciple. How could he possibly kill Cold Bone? Wait, I heard Elder Grand Zhu mention that he hunted down Cold Bone 2 days ago. Could this demonic core be a gift he gave to that boy? Zhu Qidan froze for a moment, then her eyebrows shot up as realization dawned, and she slapped her thigh. No wonder. Where did that little brat get so many demonic cores? So Zhu Qingyang gave it to him? What is that old fox scheming? On one hand, he told me to give the poisoned dragon marrow to that boy, saying he would repay the favor. On the other hand, he gave the boy so many demonic cores to trade with me. A sharp, terrifying sword kai suddenly descended nearby, and Zhu Qingyang's deep, resonant laughter drifted over from afar. Elder Grand Zhu, why are you speaking ill of me the moment you leave seclusion? When Zhu Qingyang approached, Zhu Qidan rolled her eyes. What trick are you playing, you old rascal? You made me lose a copy of the 9 Poisons True Scripture. If it was just a favor debt, I would have happily handed the poisoned dragon marrow to Fang Chen, and we would be even. But Fang Chen came with a pile of demonic cores and played the sincere, earnest card, tricking me out of the 9 Poisons True Scripture. The more I think about it, the angrier I get. Zhu Qingyang looked completely confused. What are you talking about? I don't understand a word of it. Elder Grandson said speechlessly, "You really are a good actor. Wasn't Cold Bone's demonic core on that boy given to him by you?" Zhu Qingyang blinked in surprise. Cold Bone's demonic core? Who did I give it to? Then he suddenly realized what was going on, and his face paled in shock. Wait, Cold Bone is dead. Zhu Qidan laughed coldly. Look at that. His act is almost convincing. Elder Grandson raised an eyebrow. This acting skill would fool the peak masters below as easily as if they were fools, every single time. The two of them were convinced that Cold Bone's demonic core was given by Zhu Qingyang. Otherwise, it was impossible to explain where Fang Chen got the demonic core from. Who's acting? Zhu Qingyang said with a solemn expression. It is true that I hunted Cold Bone that day, but its reinforcements arrived too. Dozens of mid-stage Golden Core Realm Beast Kings. I was already injured. So escaping with my life was hard enough, let alone charging into the horde to kill it. At first, the two were still smiling, thinking Zhu Qingyang was putting on an act, but when they saw his expression did not look like a joke, their faces slowly turned grave. Zhu Qidan looked shocked. Cold Bone really wasn't killed by you. Zhu Qingyang said in a deep voice, "Are you sure you didn't misidentify it? Who else in the territory of the 10,000 Swords Sect can slay Cold Bone, even though it was gravely wounded by my sword Kai and had less than 50% of its peak strength? It is not something an ordinary person can kill." Realizing something was wrong, Zhu Qidan quickly took out the black jade box and opened it, revealing a white demonic core the size of an eyeball. This really is Cold Bone's demonic core. Zhu Qingyang's expression changed. He immediately recognized from the demonic aura that this was the Cold Bone he had failed to hunt down. Where did you get this? Zhu Qidan closed the jade box and asked in return, "I should be asking you that. Where did that boy named Fang Chen come from? He doesn't just have Cold Bone's demonic core. He also has the demonic cores of the coppers, scaled Black Tiger, Black Eagle, and Red, scaled Vicious Flood Dragon, all from very recently slain beasts." Zhu Qingyang was stunned. Fang Chen, who is that? He searched his memory, but could not recall any powerful figure named Fang Chen. Zhu Qidan said irritably, "The one wearing a mask. You even told me to give him the poison dragon marrow, remember?" Zhu Qingyang was shocked. You mean Cold Bone's demonic core came from him? He has that many demonic cores on him. How is that possible? In his impression, Fang Chen was just an outstanding young man with superb medical skills and a meticulous mind. Such an earth-shattering feat as slaying Cold Bone could never be associated with him. Zhu Qidan sucked in a sharp breath. What? You don't know his background either? Then who in the world is he? At that moment, she even suspected that Fang Chen's name was fake. that he was not some Azure Cloud sect disciple, but a deeply hidden, powerful expert. Elder Sun stroked his nose. The three of us Grand Elders can't even see through a junior. The three of them were left bewildered, and for a moment they even doubted their own judgment. The person in question, Fang Chen, was carrying the precious 9 poisons true scripture and poison dragon marrow as he returned to the foot of the mountain. From afar, he saw a group of people surrounding Liu Ruyan. Judging by their attire, they were from the 10,000 Swords Sect. Fang Chen actually recognized the leader, Ling Jing, an elite disciple of the 10,000 Swords Sect, who had once attended the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion's roaming auction. He was looking at Liu Ruyan with a stunned, amazed expression. Fellow junior sister of the Azure Cloud sect, have you come to the 10,000 Swords Sect for something? I am Ling Jing, the eldest disciple of the 10,000 Swords Sect's sect master. If you have any needs, you can tell this senior brother. The several male and female disciples following Ling Jing all wore ambiguous, teasing smiles. After returning from the Azure Cloud sect, Ling Jing seemed to have suffered a heavy blow and devoted himself wholeheartedly to cultivation. He even refused to take the wildly popular missions from the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion that had been circulating recently. Only after being persuaded by several close friends did he temporarily set aside his cultivation to go out for a walk. The moment he stepped out the door, he was captivated by the beautiful young maiden leaning against the wall. Ling Jing was no lustful man. He would never spare a second glance for ordinary women. Yet this young maiden before him, with features as picturesque as a painting, her pretty jade countenance as if carved by immortal hands, stirred his heart deeply, so much so that he took initiative to approach her to make her acquaintance. Regrettably, Liu Ruyan did not grant him even a scrap of good grace. I appreciate your good intentions, Senior Brother Ling. I am waiting for a friend who will arrive shortly. You may go about your business. Liu Ruyan rejected him coldly. She felt thoroughly annoyed. When she had traveled with Fang Chen and Shadow Guard one before, she had never noticed such a phenomenon. But since she began wandering alone, she discovered that every young man who approached her coveted her looks without exception. By comparison, Fang Chen and Shadow Guard one were practically a breath of fresh air. As far as she was concerned, men in the world were split into only 3 categories: Fang Chen, Shadow Guard one, and all other men. Ling Jing stared at Liu Ruyan's stunning features, unable to tear his gaze away. He considered himself to have seen countless stunning beauties, many of whom had even thrown themselves at him. Yet women as breathtakingly beautiful as her, who struck straight to his core, were few and far between. The last one was Liu Qingxian, known as the most beautiful woman across the 9 great sects. Who is your friend? Tell me his name, perhaps I know him. A glint flickered in Ling Jing's eyes. It was rare for him to meet a woman he fancied. How could he let her leave so easily? Of course, if her friend was a formidable figure, like a sect's chief disciple, or the sect master's first apprentice, he would hold back and show deference. But if not, then he was sorry. This was the territory of the 10,000 Swords Sect, his home ground. No matter what, he would invite this young junior sister back to the sect, to get to know each other better. Naturally, he dared not use force. With the sect's elders and grand elders watching his every move, how could he dare to do something that would tarnish the sect's reputation? But winning her heart with all kinds of treasures and cultivation resources, that was as easy as pie. Especially since the Azure Cloud sect was a bottom-tier, impoverished sect. Most of its disciples were poorly off. He could win her over effortlessly. Liu Ruyan opened her mouth, about to say Shadow Guard one's name, only to realize to her chagrin that she did not even know his real identity. Seeing this, Ling Jing laughed. Is your friend so obscure that you fear no one will know his name? How about this? I will leave someone here to wait for your friend, and we can go tour the 10,000 Swords Sect first. When your friend returns, we will send for him to join us. Does that sound good? Without waiting for Liu Ruyan to agree, he shot a look at the several female disciples beside him, who immediately understood his meaning. They giggled and pushed her, saying, "Come on, junior sister. Senior Brother Ling has never invited any junior sister from another sect before. That's right, come on, let's go." They pushed and pulled, dragging Liu Ruyan forcefully towards the 10,000 Swords Sect. Even though she cried out in alarm, the female disciples' voices conveniently drowned hers out. Passers-by assumed they were just playing around. Liu Ruyan! Just as Liu Ruyan was seething with anger, Shadow Guard, one's voice, suddenly rang out in her ear. After their great battle against the copper-scaled black centipede, their rapport had grown significantly. She ducked down reflexively. The next instant, an arc-shaped sword kai, radiating bone, chilling cold, arrived in the blink of an eye. The few female disciples, who had no time to react, were struck by the sword Kai on the spot, sent flying and slamming into the wall with loud thuds. Not only that, the frigid cold within the sword Kai spread rapidly, freezing them to the wall so they could not break free. They let out terrified screams and sobs. This all happened in the span of a flash. Ling Jing, I did not even have time to react, and was filled with both shock and fury. He hurriedly tried to yank one of the female disciples off the wall, only to be met with a pained shriek. He had pulled the person away, but the skin on her face had been stuck to the wall by the ice. Her face was covered in blood, and she was disfigured on the spot. Fang Chen sheathed his sword and said coldly, "You would do well to leave them hanging on the wall until the cold dissipates. First, it will save their faces. Second, it will give their sense of shame a good sunning." His face was slightly cold, a flicker of rage swirling in his eyes. Ling Jing was detestable enough, but these female disciples who aided the tyrant were even more loathsome. In broad daylight, they dared to abduct someone by force. If he had not returned in time, would Liu Ruyan not have fallen into their trap? This was right at the foot of the 10,000 Swords Sect mountain. It was unbelievable that such a thing could happen here. Ling Jing was beside himself with shock and rage, roaring, "How dare you? You dare attack disciples of the 10,000 Swords Sect!" Fang Chen snorted coldly and shouted in a loud, clear voice, "What rabble are you supposed to be? You dare impersonate disciples of the 10,000 Swords Sect. In broad daylight, you openly abduct a woman. Do you hold the 10,000 Swords Sect in such contempt?" He deliberately raised his voice, drawing the shocked gazes of all the passers-by. They had assumed it was just playful antics, but it turned out to be bandits snatching women, and they even dared to impersonate 10,000 Swords Sect disciples. Were they courting death? Several martial artists with decent cultivation rolled up their sleeves and walked towards the scene. Ling Jing's expression froze, and he shouted hastily, "Who is impersonating anyone? I am Ling Jing, a direct disciple of the 10,000 Swords Sect Master. This is my identity token." He held the token high, displaying it to everyone around. Fang Chen wore a look of realization. "So you really are a direct disciple of the 10,000 Swords Sect Master. Did your sect master teach you to abduct women in the street?" He piled one damning accusation after another on him. Who could bear that? Ling Jing was furious and flustered, saying, "Nonsense. I was only inviting this junior sister back to the 10,000 Swords Sect to visit." At that moment, Liu Ruyan broke free, scrambling back to Fang Chen's side and clinging tightly to his arm, a look of terror on her face as she said, "I didn't want to go with you, but you dragged me away by force. Who knows what you intended to do with me?" As the victim, her words carried the most weight. 3 short sentences completely ignited the rage of the onlookers. The crowd roared in anger, outrageous. The first disciple of the 10,000 Swords Sect abducts a civilian woman in broad daylight. Is there no justice left? They even dare to treat a female disciple of the Azure Cloud sect like this. How much more dangerous will it be for women from our clans and rogue cultivators? This old man is going to ask the 10,000 Swords Sect Master right now, how does he teach his disciples? At present, the area surrounding the 10,000 Swords Sect was teeming with people from outside sects, including quite a few senior experts from various sects. They would never tolerate disciples of the 10,000 Swords Sect abusing their home ground advantage to bully juniors from other sects as they pleased. This made Ling Jing's face twitch violently, and he hurriedly explained, "That's not how it is. It's really not. I only wanted to invite this junior sister back to the 10,000 Swords Sect. That's all. My master, the elders, and the Grand Elders are all watching. How could I ever mean her harm?" He felt utterly wronged. But the crowd would not listen to his excuses. Who knew what you would do after you snatched her back? You say this now, that you've been caught, but if no one had found out, wouldn't this female disciple have fallen into the tiger's den? No matter what you say, abducting someone means you have ill intentions. Let's all go to the 10,000 Swords Sect to demand an explanation. A great number of martial artists traveled in groups, all heading for the Myriad Sword Sect. Seeing how matters had unfolded, Ling Jing was consumed with remorse. He had thought this junior sister from the Azure Cloud sect would be an easy target to bully, never imagining her companion would be so formidable. The man had landed him with a grave accusation out of nowhere, and a brutal punishment was now unavoidable. At this thought, rage surged through him, and he glared viciously at Fang Chen. "You wait for me. If you have the guts, don't ever set foot in Myriad Sword Sect. I will make you regret crossing me." He would have liked to take revenge on the spot and teach Fang Chen a harsh lesson, but all the surrounding onlookers were glaring at him furiously. If he dared to make a move, countless people would step in to aid Fang Chen. What's more, a large crowd had already gone to Myriad Sword Sect to report his offense. He dared not delay any longer, so he spat out his threat and fled in a fit of rage. Watching his sorry fleeing figure, Liu Ruyan burst out laughing and asked playfully, "How was my acting just now?" If not for her cries as the injured party, the onlookers would never have been roused to such collective indignation. Fang Chen rubbed his nose, surprised that the ever-serious Liu Ruyan had such a mischievous side. He coughed lightly and said, "You're still laughing. Didn't you hear his threat? He swore to make us pay at the Sword Forest." Liu Ruyan curled her lips. "He can't even save himself. How would he get the chance to take revenge on us?" Her beautiful eyes fixed on Fang Chen, and a great sense of safety welled up in her heart. "Besides, I have you, don't I?" She had long lost count of how many times Shadow Guard 1 had saved her, and every time she had escaped unharmed. This had given her the quiet belief that as long as he was by her side, she had nothing to fear. Fang Chen was left speechless, then said, "We should find a place to help you raise your strength first. Only by growing stronger yourself will you have more power to protect yourself." A short while later, the two arrived at an inn in the city. Fang Chen first helped her comprehend the cultivation method passed down by Elder Ling Jing, who then assisted her in further improving the solitary swan, skimming the shadow's movement technique. She already had a solid foundation in movement arts, and under Fang Chen's careful guidance, she successfully mastered the first layer of the technique. When it came to offensive cultivation methods, however, Fang Chen could not make up his mind for the moment. Several of the Earth-grade cultivation methods he practiced were either far too difficult to learn or would risk exposing his identity, while the rest were too weak in power. He could only put the matter aside for the time being and teach Liu Ruyan once he found a suitable cultivation method later. Once Liu Ruyan entered meditative cultivation, Fang Chen returned to his own room, closed the doors and windows tightly, and took out the 9 poisons true scripture to comprehend. As a mid-tier Earth-grade cultivation method, even Fang Chen found it challenging to grasp its profundities. Several hours later, a look of admiration crossed his face. The senior who created this technique is truly a genius. He actually mimicked poisonous demonic beasts to forge a separate poison core. When not in use, the poison core can absorb any toxins that enter the body, granting 1 immunity to all poisons. When activated, it releases massive amounts of lethal poison that merges with one's spiritual power, adding a toxic wounding effect to one's attacks. It is truly a technique that integrates both offense and defense. Having fully comprehended the technique, the next step was to consume a lethal poison. He took out the venomous dragon marrow. Its intense toxicity made him feel waves of dizziness even through the jade bottle, showing just how potent its poison was. If he swallowed the entire bottle, he should have no problem mastering the first layer of the technique. However, swallowing it directly would be a great waste. Only by refining it into a medicinal pill, first could its toxicity be preserved to the maximum extent. But would refining this pill here cause any trouble? Fang Chen was somewhat worried. This was venomous dragon marrow after all. During the refining process, the pill fragrance would inevitably leak out, and the fragrance would be laced with trace amounts of lethal poison. If passers-by inhaled it, it could very well cost them their lives. This place was deep in a busy city, so he could not afford to be careless. He immediately left the inn and headed for the desolate northern corner of the city, where he stopped at an abandoned temple. After checking the surroundings thoroughly and confirming no one was nearby, he began refining the toxic medicinal pills. After an unknown amount of time, a sneaky figure clad in red, covered in mud, emerged from the ground outside the temple. She yawned and stretched lazily. She could never get used to the human lifestyle of working at sunrise and resting at sunset. After living among humans for several days, she had not gotten any sleep during the day at all. After entering the city today, she had immediately found this remote, desolate place where not even ghosts would wander, and had a wonderful sleep. Gazing up at the starry night sky, the demonic beast felt utterly content. She mumbled to herself, "I'll go scout the situation now, see how many elite disciples the 9 sects have sent. Tomorrow at the Sword Forest, I'll take them all out in one fell swoop." As she was muttering to herself, the abandoned temple behind her suddenly erupted in bright flames, and a beam of purplish, black kai shot straight into the sky. She stared in shock. What is that? Is there someone inside the temple? Her eyes darted around, and she crept silently to the temple gate. Glancing inside, she spotted a somewhat familiar back figure standing beside a small pill furnace under a broken Buddha statue. Is this pill refining? She recognized that this was a human cultivator refining pills. She had heard that human medicinal pills had unique effects, and many of them were greatly beneficial to demonic beasts. At this thought, she crept closer. Unexpectedly, the sky-piercing kai suddenly spread out in all directions, and she had no time to dodge, getting enveloped by the kai on the spot. A thick, lethal poison entered her body through her nose and mouth, and intense dizziness washed over her. She blinked her eyes in utter confusion. "I've been poisoned. What kind of lunatic refines toxic pills in the middle of the night? I was just passing by to take a look." Her vision went black, and she fell straight to the ground. Hearing movement behind him, Fang Chen turned around and was startled. How could there be someone in this place? His expression shifted, and he quickly put away the several refined toxic pills before hurrying over to check. If he had poisoned an innocent person to death, it would be a grave sin on his part. When he ran over to see who it was, Fang Chen was stunned. "Isn't that strange girl from before?" He recognized her immediately. She was the young girl who had shown hostility towards him and asked for his name at the city gate. Her exotic appearance was far too distinctive to mistake. No matter who she was, human life was of the utmost importance. Fang Chen hurriedly checked her condition, and after a moment he let out a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, she was only knocked unconscious by the poison, and has not suffered any severe toxic damage. He had not expected her poison resistance to be so strong. The leaked pill fragrance from the refined venomous dragon marrow was astoundingly toxic, far more potent than the faint whiff one would get through a jade bottle. Any cultivator at the Foundation establishment realm would be severely poisoned and gravely injured if they inhaled it, while those at the Kai condensation realm would die on the spot. For this girl to only fall unconscious spoke volumes of her special physique. Fang Chen had no intention of prying into her background, so he carried her to lie on the incense altar at the side, then stood guard nearby. While waiting for her to wake up, he took out the 3 black medicinal pills refined from the venomous dragon marrow. He swallowed one pill, and a searing burning pain spread from his tongue all the way to his stomach, so agonizing that he shivered uncontrollably. Before the lethal poison in the pill could erupt, he immediately activated the 9 poisons true scripture, rapidly absorbing the toxins leaking from the pill. In the spirit pond of his dantian, a broad bean-sized pill-shaped object visibly took form. This was the poison core. All the toxins released from the medicinal pill were absorbed by it, and did not harm Fang Chen's body at all. Soon, all the toxins from the first medicinal pill were absorbed, and Fang Chen took a second one. This time, the poison core's absorption speed was significantly slower. It took a full hour for all the toxins in the pill to be completely absorbed. By this point, the poison core was glowing black, as plump and glossy as fine porcelain. Gazing at the last remaining toxic medicinal pill, Fang Chen put it away. 2 toxic pills were the maximum limit his body could withstand for the time being. He rose to his feet and struck the clay Buddha statue before him with a long range palm strike. A sharp hissing sound echoed out, and a palm imprint immediately appeared on the statue. Violent, corrosive noises emanated from within the imprint, as strands of visible toxin slowly eroded the clay sculpture. In mere moments, it had eroded a pit a full foot deep. Fang Chen clicked his tongue in amazement. If this strike had landed on a living person, even a mid-grade defensive magical artifact would be utterly incapable of fending it off, would it not? This poison art was far more formidable than he had anticipated. When deployed by surprise, it could bring immense trouble to one's enemies. Joy flashed across his eyes. This was an unexpected windfall. However, whether he was cultivating the 9 poison true scripture or refining the venom spirit pill, this was far from his ultimate goal. He sat cross-legged once more, drew a deep breath, and manipulated the poison core within his body to slowly release toxins that coursed through all the meridians in his body, seeping into his bones, internal organs, flesh and blood, as well as his skin and hair. Excruciating pain followed immediately. Such was the way of body refinement. Without enduring physical agony, one could never achieve the great leap of rebirth from the ashes. Fortunately, with the poison core at his disposal, he could control the dosage of the toxin, ensuring it was not so potent that it poisoned him to death on the spot, nor so sparse that it had no effect at all. He maintained the intensity at a level that delivered extreme stimulation, but remained non-lethal, letting his body undergo relentless tempering and destruction. Before long, his entire body was drenched in cold sweat. The searing pain made his teeth clench so hard they grated, twisting his facial features completely out of shape. This agonizing process continued until dawn, before finally coming to an end. At this moment, Fang Chen's face and palms were covered in a layer of thick, inkai black sludge. All his exposed skin was in the same state, and the areas hidden beneath his clothes were in an even worse condition. Fang Chen's face was pale, but he could not hide the elation in his expression. Iron Blood True Scripture, 3rd layer, Dragon Elephant Battle Physique. At this moment, he felt unprecedented confidence, certain that he could go toe-to-toe in physical combat with a Golden Core Realm 2nd layer demonic beast. If he combined it with the Heaven, battling 9 stances, he could secure an easy victory over such a foe.
Furthermore, as his cultivation realm rose, his physical constitution would also advance to an entirely new level.
His eyes shone brightly. Against the upcoming beast tide, this improvement would undoubtedly vastly boost his ability to protect himself.
He remained elated for a long while before noticing the waves of foul stench coming from his body.
These were the impurities expelled from within his body after his physique underwent a complete transformative rebirth. Wearing a look of disgust, he quickly stripped off all his clothes, vibrated his spiritual power to shake off all the sludge on his body's surface, and cleaned himself thoroughly. He took out a new set of clothes and was just about to put them on.
A sharp scream suddenly rang out from behind him. "You shameless scoundrel!" Fang Chen was startled, hurriedly pulled on his clothes, and turned his head to look. The corners of his mouth couldn't help twitching repeatedly.
The woman in the red dress, who had been unconscious for the entire night, had woken up at this exact moment by sheer coincidence, and had caught sight of this very scene. He felt an urge to spit blood. Could this turn of events be any more quick? While putting on his clothes at lightning speed, he soothed her. "Miss, I apologize deeply for what happened last night.
I did not do it on purpose, but rest assured, if you feel any discomfort in the future, I will take full responsibility." Though the poison gas had only made her faint, Fang Chen could not be certain for the moment whether there would be any after effects. But he would never shirk the responsibility he ought to bear. At worst, he would specially treat her to dispel any remaining poison later. However, when these words fell into the ears of the Demon Emperor's daughter, they carried an entirely different meaning.
Her face changed drastically. "Take responsibility for me. Could it be that last night, while I was unconscious, he did something improper to me? Thinking of Fang Chen being completely naked just now, it looked exactly like he had just finished doing something indecent. To make matters worse, the residual poison in her body made her ache all over, as if she had been ruthlessly tossed around and tormented. Everything that had transpired pushed her to the brink of utter collapse. She, the dignified daughter of the Demon Emperor, had been defiled by a mere human. Looking at the dazed girl, Fang Chen felt a twinge of worry and said, "Are you all right? Don't look like that. I won't run away. I will take full responsibility for you." At these words, the Demon Emperor's daughter flew into a towering rage. She shattered the incense table beneath her with a single palm strike and roared, "I will kill you." She surged forward, charging straight at Fang Chen to strike him down. Fang Chen jumped in fright. "What are you doing?" He had already said he would take full responsibility for her injuries. Was there any need to be so eager to attack and kill him? He had not done it on purpose, after all. Seeing the wild, manic look on her face, Fang Chen did not dare to stay a moment longer. He immediately grabbed all the items scattered across the ground, activated his movement technique, and fled at top speed. By the time the red-robed woman chased outside, there was no trace of Fang Chen to be found anywhere. Furious and broken, she let out a few roars of rage before squatting helplessly on the ground, wailing loudly, "Why, the human world is far too dangerous. I was just passing through, and I lost my innocence for no reason at all." She sobbed for a long, long time. She suddenly felt a dull ache and distension in her abdomen, clapped a hand over her stomach, and cried out in shame and rage, "That cursed bastard! How many times did he do that to me?" The more she thought about it, the angrier she grew. Gritting her teeth so hard they nearly cracked, she snarled, "None of you humans are any good. You all deserve to die. All of you human elites in the Sword Forest. Not a single one of you will leave alive." Achoo! Fang Chen, who had just returned to the inn, sneezed out of nowhere. He glanced down and saw his clothes were disheveled and unfastened, so he hurried back to his room as quickly as possible. To his surprise, he found Liu Ruyan waiting for him inside the room. The two stared at each other in silence for a long moment. Liu Ruyan looked him up and down with a suspicious expression on her face. Where did you go last night?" Looking at Shadow Guard 1, whose clothes were in disarray, who had not even had time to put on his inner robes, and who was carrying all kinds of random items in his hands, he looked for all the world like he had just crawled out of a woman's bed. Moreover, she suspected the woman was very likely married. Otherwise, why would he have run off in such a frantic hurry? A sour, unpleasant feeling immediately rose in her chest. Fang Chen let out a dry cough and said, "Nowhere that concerns you. Don't worry about it. Get yourself ready properly. We are about to depart for the Sword Forest." Liu Ruyan bit her lip lightly, her heart filled with sour jealousy. She badly wanted to ask for a clear explanation, but she was only a friend of Shadow Guard 1. What right did she have to meddle in his private life? She could only storm off in a huff. Fang Chen looked utterly confused. What did I do to upset her? Before long, the two were fully prepared and returned to the 10,000 Swords Sect once more. At the entrance, elite disciples from various sects were all lined up, waiting to enter. All of a sudden, a set of familiar robes caught Fang Chen's eye. He looked closely and realized they were the official robes of the Qin sect. Was that Liu Qingxian? Fang Chen looked over hastily. The person he wanted to see most right now was Liu Qingxian. He had no idea what had happened after she had the Gale Pearl snatched by the giant sect disciples, and worried she might have gone to demand it back in a fit of anger and gotten injured as a result. To his disappointment, the person who had arrived was not Liu Qingxian, but a group of Qin sect disciples led by Grand Elder Fang Chen. He did not recognize most of them. The only exception was Nai Yunxi, the senior sister of Heavenly Sword Peak, with whom he had had a few prior interactions that were far from pleasant. Nai Yunxi had been placed in solitary confinement for a month. Now, with the opening of the Sword Forest, Lai Qingfeng had released her early to allow her to participate, in the hopes that she would break through her current realm. She was effectively there to atone for her past mistakes, so she was acting extremely cautiously, not daring to make the slightest error. She faintly noticed someone staring at her and turned her head to look. She spotted an unknown masked man, dressed in loose, flowing robes, carrying a pair of swords on his back, with a gyukin slung across his waist. He looked exceedingly mysterious. She frowned, her expression turning wary. But a moment later, her face changed drastically, and she cried out in shock. Junior Sister Liu. She could not believe her eyes. She had actually spotted Liu Ruyan. Hearing the call, Liu Ruyan, who had been sullen and distracted while being angry at Shadow Guard 1, froze for a moment. She looked in the direction of the voice, and her face immediately lit up with joy. Senior Sister, she hurried over at once. She had been away from the sect for so long, how could she not be overjoyed to run into someone she knew from home? The two women chattered excitedly for a long time. When Nai Yunxi heard that Liu Ruyan had encountered many dangers on her journey, her heart ached for the younger girl. Your travels end here. Once the Sword Forest trial is over, come back to the sect with me. Master has been worrying about you non-stop. At these words, Liu Ruyan's eyes turned red, and she nodded silently. Okay. She then realized that this meant her journey with Shadow Guard 1 was coming to an end. Though their time together had been short, all the thrilling, dangerous experiences they had shared were unforgettable to her. Senior Sister, let me introduce someone to you. This is my friend. She waved at Fang Chen. Come over here. I want to introduce you to my senior sister and the other disciples of the Qin sect. Fang Chen's lips twitched. What need was there for anyone to introduce these people to him? He stepped forward, gazing at the mix of familiar and unfamiliar faces before him, then sensed that their cultivation realms were far lower than those of disciples from other sects, and could not help but sigh silently. The Azure Cloud sect has truly walked a difficult path. He fumbled inside his sleeve and retrieved a vial of Peak, Grade Foundation, Establishment Elixirs that he had long had no use for. Greetings, senior brothers and sisters. I am a friend of Liu Ruyan. This is a small token for our first meeting. He opened the jade vial, flicking each medicinal pill with his finger to the elite disciples present. Nai Yunxi also received one. She picked it up to examine it closely and froze. This is a Foundation Establishment Elixir. Why does it look so different from ordinary ones? Fang Chen had originally disdained involving himself in the affairs of junior disciples, until he caught sight of the elixir. His eyes flew wide open, and he cried out in shock, Peak Grade Foundation Establishment Elixir. The Azure Cloud sect disciples turned pale with horror. This was actually the legendary Peak Grade Foundation Establishment Elixir, whose medicinal effect equaled that of several ordinary Foundation Establishment Elixirs combined. This was a priceless, peerless treasure. Even Liu Ruyan was stunned. Leaving aside the question of where he had obtained such Peak Grade Foundation Establishment Elixirs, how could he give away such valuable treasures so casually? She hurriedly tugged at Fang Chen's sleeve. Have you lost your mind? Fang Chen smiled and said, Since they are your senior and junior fellow disciples, they are my friends too. As he spoke, he stuffed the remaining 7 or 8 Foundation Establishment Elixirs from the jade vial into her palm. The rest are all for you. Liu Ruyan held the weightless jade vial in her hands, yet her heart felt heavy with the weight of the favor it represented. As the senior sister of Heavenly Sword Peak, Nai Yunxi was no stranger to rare and valuable treasures, but she was still utterly stunned by Fang Chen's staggering generosity. Peak Grade Foundation Establishment Elixirs, given away as casually as common candy beans. She asked in disbelief, Junior Sister Liu, which sect does this young master hail from as an elite disciple? Liu Ruyan could not answer for a moment. She wanted to know the true identity of Shadow Guard number 1 more than anyone else alive. Just then, another procession arrived. It was precisely the disciples of the Joyous Harmony sect, led by Ling Jing, who, From elders to the lowest disciple, all wore bright, lavish attire, immediately becoming the center of all attention the moment they appeared. Fangchen's gaze, which had been fixed on Fang Chen, immediately shifted to Ling Jing, who, he took the initiative to cup his fists in greeting. Elder Ling, it has been a long time. Ling Jing's strength was a full notch higher than his, and the Joyous Harmony sect was a top-ranked sect, so Fangchen intentionally adopted a humble demeanor. Ling Jing, who smiled and said, I trust Elder Feng has been well since we last met. She spotted Fang Chen, and her face lit up with joy as she took the initiative to address him. You are here as well, young master. It made perfect sense. After all, Fang Chen was a disciple of the Azure Cloud sect, so he would naturally be gathered with them now. However, she noted he still wore his mask, and seemed unwilling to reveal his identity to the rest of the Azure Cloud sect, so she wisely chose not to expose him. Elder Ling, Fang Chen cupped his fists and asked, Has your injury fully recovered? Ling Jing, who had been far too reluctant to use the rejuvenation elixir he had given her, so she replied with a warm smile, Thanks to your good fortune, I have recovered almost entirely. This scene left Fangchen and the Azure Cloud sect disciples utterly shocked. The Grand Elder of the Joyous Harmony sect was actually chatting amicably with Shadow Guard No. 1 as if they were equals, and she had even brushed Fangchen aside as if he were of no import. What made them completely lose their composure was that Ling Jing, who glanced at Liu Ruyan, who was standing beside Fang Chen, and wore a gentle, warm expression as she asked, Miss Liu, do you hold qualification to enter the Sword Forest? Liu Ruyan's expression dimmed, and she gave a bitter smile. I am afraid not. All qualifications to enter the Sword Forest are requested from the 10,000 Swords Sect by each respective sect, and there are no extra spots at all. Even Fangchen cannot bring me into the Sword Forest, so I can only wait outside. Ling Jing, who smiled faintly and said, Then you may join my Joyous Harmony sect's roster. One of our disciples perished on the journey here, leaving an empty spot. You may enter the Sword Forest under the identity of a Joyous Harmony sect disciple. Fangchen frowned and said, That is not quite appropriate, is it? We would be indebted to Elder Ling for such a great favor. Ling Jing, who laughed and said, What is there to worry about? Since junior sister Liu is a friend of the young master, this small favor is nothing at all. It was all out of respect for Shadow Guard No. 1. Fangchen's face was filled with shock as he cupped his fists towards Fang Chen and asked, Young friend, may I ask who your master is? This old man may well share an acquaintance with him. As a Grand Elder, he held connections with prominent figures across all sects, and he was burning with curiosity as to which sect could produce a disciple with such immense standing. Fang Chen rolled his eyes, thinking to himself, My master is none other than the Azure Cloud sect master you have been feuding with for over a decade. Out loud, he said casually, I am a rogue cultivator. It was a perfunctory answer, nothing more. He turned to Liu Ruyan and said, Why are you not thanking Elder Ling? Liu Ruyan was overwhelmed with joy and thanked Ling Jing, who profusely. She had originally only come to the 10,000 Swords Sect to watch the proceedings, and had never entertained the thought of entering the Sword Forest. She never expected that Ling Jing, who, once again out of respect for Shadow Guard No. 1, would gift her such a massive opportunity. The faint resentment she had held towards Shadow Guard No. 1 previously vanished without a trace in an instant. Just then, someone tugged at her sleeve. She turned around to find Na Yunxi standing behind her. Na Yunxi's eyes were sparkling, unconcealable envy written across her face as she asked, Junior Sister Liu, where did you meet such a distinguished young master? Looking at the unabashed envy on the faces of Na Yunxi and the other Azure Cloud sect disciples, Liu Ruyan felt a faint swell of pride in her heart and said in a low voice, He is a friend I met back in Gaju City. So you are old acquaintances. Na Yunxi grew even more envious. Gazing at Shadow Guard No. 1, who could converse with two Grand Elders as a full equal, she sighed, Junior Sister Liu, you are truly blessed. To have encountered such a dragon among men, who values you so highly, no less. She remembered the rumors surrounding Liu Ruyan, Fang Chen, and Liu Ruxu, and had vaguely heard that Liu Ruyan seemed to regret the engagement she had been promised in years prior. So she advised, Junior Sister Liu, this Shadow Guard No. 6 is far stronger than Fang Chen by leaps and bounds. You must seize this opportunity. Upon hearing this, Liu Ruyan immediately spoke in a hurried, low voice, SHHH, you must not utter such reckless nonsense. Shadow Guard 1 and I are merely ordinary friends. A soft sigh escaped from the depths of her heart. She had once wondered if Shadow Guard 1 harbored romantic feelings for her. Why else would he always save her, help her time and again, and even specially assist her with her cultivation, last night allowing her strength to advance by leaps and bounds? But after their repeated interactions, she felt both faintly disappointed and somewhat relieved to discover that Shadow Guard, one had never once shown any romantic affection for her.
Is that so?
Na Yunxi sighed. In my eyes, even the chief disciples of all sects pale in comparison to such an outstanding man. To form a bond with him in this lifetime is already the highest of fortunes. If you
miss this chance, it will be a lifelong regret.
Liu Ruyan fell into deep thought. She could not deny that the Shadow Guard one before her was exactly the peerless dragon among men she had once dreamed of marrying. But when such an ideal man actually stood before her, she felt far less moved than she had expected in her younger days. Instead, Fang Chen's lingering shadow constantly surfaced in her mind. Thank you for your guidance, senior sister. Liu Ruyan sighed silently, her heart growing even more tangled and complicated. Just at this moment, a series of women's screams rang out. When all present fixed their gazes forward, 3 tall, powerful steeds came galloping at high speed. The leading man was tall and handsome, astride one of the great steeds, his gaze bright and piercing. All along the path he traversed, female disciples of various sects emitted shy whispers, and even a portion of the more outgoing ones screamed outright, the adoration in their eyes completely undisguised. Na Yunxi's eyes lit up, undisguised admiration filling her gaze. This trip to the Sword Forest is truly worthwhile. We actually get to see Lu Shi, the chief disciple of the True Thunder sect. He and Fu Keijun, chief of the Heavenly Sound sect, are known as the twin stars of the 9 sects, the most favored of heaven's chosen sons. A faint hint of flirtation colored her tone. Fang Chen was left speechless upon hearing this, thinking to himself, does Aoyong Jun of the Thousand Forging sect not deserve a spot? Is he unqualified to be part of the twin stars just because his looks are not up to par? He was rather baffled. What was Lu Shi even coming to the Sword Forest for? The Sword Forest only grants beneficial effects to disciples at the Foundation establishment realm. He was already at the Golden Core realm, so there was no benefit for him to be here. He might as well leave the opportunity to the Foundation establishment, junior brothers and sisters of his sect. Elder Ling, why is Jin Yunli nowhere to be seen? A sharp glint flashed across Fang Chen's eyes. Among the 3 tall steeds, only the figures of 3 disciples were visible, with no trace of Jin Yunli to be found. Elder Ling spoke with unconcealed schadenfreude. His luck was rotten. After he was attacked by Leng Gu that day, he split up and fled separately from his disciples. As a result, the 3 disciples returned safe and sound, but there has been no sign of him for ages. I'm afraid he is more dead than alive. A flicker passed through Fang Chen's gaze. He had witnessed Leng Gu's ferocity firsthand, so the possibility that Jin Yunli had met with misfortune was indeed very high. Then what about Axi? The beast tide is approaching soon. It would be great if he could kill a few more demonic beasts before he leaves, Fang Chen said teasingly. Elder Ling pursed her lips and laughed. You are truly wicked, but even if he comes back alive, his end won't be much better. He stole Zhu Qingyong's top-grade magical artifact long sword. Did he think he could get away scot-free? Does he think Zhu Qingyong's sword skill, ranked first among the 9 sects, is for cutting grass? It is just a pity that one of the only 2 top-grade long swords awarded at the 9 sects Grand Competition has also gone missing along with him. By this time, Lu Shi had already arrived at the mountain gate. Under the adoring gazes of countless female disciples, he puffed out his chest, thoroughly reveling in this treatment. He caught a glimpse of a familiar graceful figure, which was none other than Liu Ruyan. Unlike the other women who fawned over him, Liu Ruyan turned her body sideways, deliberately avoiding his gaze. Junior Sister Liu, Lu Shi could not help but call out, dismounting from his horse in one fluid motion and striding quickly to stand before her. Na Yunxi was stunned and spoke in shock. Junior Sister Liu, you know senior brother Liu. A helpless expression crossed Liu Ruyan's face. She had done her best to avoid this man, but he still sought her out. She had no choice but to greet him formally, senior brother Liu. Seeing Liu Ruyan again filled Lu Shi with joy, and he said, now that I see you are safe, I can finally set my mind at ease. The road from the joyous sect to this place is fraught with peril. Even my own master has gone missing because of the dangers along the way. You are not far behind our group, so being able to arrive here safely is truly a stroke of incredible luck. Luck? Was it being hunted down by the copper, scaled black centipede, or Leng Gu finally making his terrifying appearance? The moment Liu Ruyan thought of the horrifying scene when Leng Gu arrived, a chill ran down her spine. She rubbed her arms and unconsciously stepped closer to Fang Chen's side, only then feeling a sense of safety wash over her. This action naturally drew Lu Shi's attention to Fang Chen. He immediately raised an eyebrow and spoke with undisguised displeasure. You seem to turn up everywhere. Fang Chen curled his lips disdainfully. I should be the one saying that. This is an event for Foundation Establishment Realm disciples. What are you doing here sticking your nose into matters that don't concern you? Watching Liu Ruyan cling closely to Fang Chen's side, a flicker of anger ignited in Lu Shi's heart. If it were not for the presence of the Qingyun sect elders and Ling Jing, who here, he would have immediately attacked to blast Fang Chen away without hesitation. He snorted coldly, his expression extremely hostile. Do you think I am some newly broken through Foundation Establishment realm whelp like you? I came here at the invitation of the 10,000 Swords Sect to clear out hidden dangers in the Sword Forest. His tone brimmed with unmasked pride. After he finished speaking the last half of the sentence, he noticed that the surrounding disciples all wore faint expressions of shock, only then realizing he had let a secret slip. But it was already far too late to take back his words. He might as well be frank about it and said, Junior Sister Liu, the Sword Forest is far from peaceful inside. Why don't you stay by my side? I can guarantee your safety. Others may not have the ability to protect you. Liu Ruyan did not even hesitate, shaking her head firmly in refusal. Thank you for your kind offer, Senior Brother Liu, but having Shadow God One protecting me is more than enough. The chief disciple is indeed powerful, but when facing Ling Gu, you could only rely on luck to escape. Shadow God One is different. He killed Ling Gu outright. It goes without saying who is safer to stay by. Does it not? Lu Shi frowned once more. He truly could not see what was so remarkable about this man of unknown identity that he deserved Liu Ruyan's complete trust. Even if his identity were revealed, he would at most be an elite disciple of some random sect. How could he compare to even a single finger of his, Lu Shi? Liu Ruyan was still too young after all. She had never encountered true danger, and did not understand the weight of having a real powerhouse at your side. Fine, if you change your mind later, you can come find me. With so many eyes watching, Lu Shi could not force Liu Ruyan to do as he wished. He thought to himself, when Liu Ruyan encounters mortal danger in the Sword Forest, and comes begging him for help, it will not be as easy as it is now. If she does not pay a suitable price, she can forget about receiving his protection. The moment Lu Shi left, the disciples and elders of the various sects erupted into an uproar. Ling Jing, who said in a deep, heavy voice, There are hidden dangers in the Sword Forest. Why did the 10,000 Swords Sect not mention this beforehand? Fangchen was also filled with raging fury. The people we sent here are all elite disciples of our sects, the pillars of our sect's next generation. If any losses occur, can the 10,000 Swords Sect bear the responsibility? Fang Chen pondered for a long while before speaking calmly. There is no need for excessive worry. The Myriad Sword Sect is far more concerned about mishaps than our outer sect. If this hidden danger were uncontrollable, they would never open the Sword Forest to begin with. The so-called hazard is not likely to be too severe. At the very least, the disciples will have no trouble fleeing should things go south. What puzzled Fang Chen was why they had traveled thousands of li to invite Lu Shi to eliminate this hidden danger, when the Myriad Sword Sect was teeming with experts. Could they not subdue it themselves? After a long moment of thought, his gaze flickered faintly. They required the thunder power of the true Thunder sect to suppress it. Realizing this, he exhaled softly, his heart settling completely, for he too wielded the power of thunder. The commotion outside the mountain gate quickly drew the attention of the Myriad Sword Sect. Before long, the Myriad Sword Sect master arrived in person. He explained with a face full of apology, Fellow Taoists, my sincerest apologies, truly. It is not that our sect deliberately concealed this matter, but this hidden danger poses no real threat. Beast Tide is imminent, and the elite disciples of every sect are in urgent need of increasing their strength. Our Myriad Sword Sect has opened the Sword Forest by order of the Heavenly Secret Pavilion in the hope of contributing our part to the greater cause. We invited cultivators from the True Thunder sect to eradicate the hidden danger and have no intention of halting access to the Sword Forest. If any of you are truly uneasy, you may turn back now, and our sect will provide food, drink, and carriages for your entire journey. His words hung heavy in the air, leaving no room for further argument. The anger in everyone's hearts dissipated swiftly. On second thought, the Myriad Sword Sect's Sword Forest had always only been open to their own disciples. Were it not for the order from the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion, how would outer sect disciples ever get a share of this opportunity? They ought to be thanking the Myriad Sword Sect. There was truly no reason to blame them for an unintentional oversight. Seeing that he had dispelled everyone's doubts, the Myriad Sword Sect Master cupped his hands in a cultivator's salute. Since that is settled, please follow me, everyone. The elders and disciples of the 8 sects perked up instantly. Had they not traveled thousands of li here precisely to make progress in the Sword Forest? A look of anticipation crossed Fang Chen's face. He had already refined his foundation establishment 8th layer cultivation to the absolute peak,
and only needed a single opportunity to break through to Foundation Establishment 9th layer.
Once he reached that realm, forming a golden core would no longer be a distant, unattainable goal.
Led by the Myriad Swords Sect Master, they arrived at the rear mountain of the Myriad Swords Sect. A single glance made Fang Chen silently gasp in shock. This vast rear mountain, spanning several li in every direction, was completely barren of vegetation, yet stuffed full of endless swords stretching as far as the eye could see, tens of thousands in
number packed densely together.
Some were rusted and corroded, others as pristine as the day they were forged. Some were several zhang long, like great tree trunks, others several feet wide and thick, shaped like massive rulers.
They constantly exuded wispy strands of sword kai that drifted back and forth among the countless blades, emitting sharp, clanging sounds that cut through the air.
Fang Chen clicked his tongue quietly in wonder. This was less a sword forest and more a sword mound.
The Myriad Swords Sect Master pointed at the sword forest and said, "This is our sect's sword forest. The swords here are either the legacy blades of our sect's disciples, elders, sect masters, and Grand Elders left behind after their passing, or trophies seized from slain enemies, accumulated over thousands of years to what you see today. As the most ancient sect among the 9 great sects, only it could have forged such a breathtaking, awe-inspiring sword forest." The Myriad Swords Sect Master continued, "These broken swords retain the residual spiritual power of their former masters. Over countless years, this power has dissipated and spread, permeating every corner of the sword forest. Disciples of all sects, you may seek out locations with abundant spiritual power on your own to meditate and cultivate for a period of 3 days. You may enter once. Incense, stick of time, has passed." The disciples of all sects rubbed their hands in anticipation, having caught the unspoken meaning. The distribution of spiritual power in the sword forest was extremely uneven.
The areas near powerful ancient swords would naturally have far richer spiritual power. Whoever found these spots first would gain the upper hand, and stand a chance of breaking through their current realm.
The more quick-witted had already taken out movement speed talismans, while a small number of extremely wealthy disciples drew out movement-type magical artifacts, all determined to get a step ahead of the rest.
"Which direction should we head towards later?" Excitement swirled in Liu Ruyan's eyes, and she was practically thrumming with eagerness to test out the movement technique she had just mastered.
Fang Chen stared at the endless sword forest, stretching across the entire mountain, and felt a faint headache. Participating in the sword forest trial did not guarantee a break through to one's current realm. If one had bad luck, it was entirely possible to come all this way for nothing. As he was deep in thought, he remembered the little Qilin. Patting its rear through his robes, he asked, "You have an extremely sharp sense for heavenly treasures and spiritual artifacts, right? Which direction has the strongest spiritual aura?" The little Qilin wandered far and wide, seeking out heavenly and earthly treasures to eat, and had a sensitivity to spiritual kai that no human could ever match. The little Qilin grumbled in dissatisfaction, then quietly stuck a tiny paw out from under Fang Chen's robes, pointing towards the northwest direction. "That way is the strongest. There seem to be several spots there, with pretty powerful spiritual kai." Pausing for a moment, it pointed towards the northeast and added, "There are some there too, but that place feels ominous." Ominous, was it referring to the hidden danger? Just then, Nai Yunxi crept over, speaking in a low whisper, "Liu Shanmai, this junior brother." She jerked her chin subtly towards the area behind the Myriad Sword Sect Master. Ling Jing, whose face was still swollen and bruised, had arrived behind the Sect Master at some point, accompanied by 5 elite disciples of the Myriad Sword Sect. Nai Yunxi said, "When it comes to knowledge of the Sword Forest, who could possibly be better than the Myriad Sword Sect's own disciples? The place they head to is definitely the area with the richest spiritual kai in the entire Sword Forest. We should follow them later. Even if we can't grab the best spots, we won't end up with bad ones." The logic was sound, but when Fang Chen glanced around, he was speechless to find that disciples from every sect were all staring at the Myriad Sword Sect disciples to varying degrees. Clearly, all of these elite disciples were exceptionally clever. The trick Nai Yunxi had thought of had already occurred to every other sect as well. He shook his head slightly and said, "Senior Sister Nai, inform the Qingyun sect disciples to follow me closely later." Nai Yunxi hesitated for a brief moment, then nodded in agreement. The time of an incense stick passed quickly. The Myriad Sword Sect Master said, "Time is almost up. Gihai, escort these junior brothers and sisters inside." As a second layer, Golden Core Realm disciple, Ling Jing, I should by rights not have been qualified to enter. But this was the Myriad Sword Sect's territory. What possible complaint could the outer sect members have when they slipped in one extra Golden Core disciple? Ling Jing nodded heavily and mumbled inarticulately, "Yes, He cast a sidelong glance at Fang Chen, not far away, fury blazing in his eyes. The complaint filed the previous day had indeed earned him a brutal beating. The wounds on his face were plain to see, while the hidden injuries across his body were far more numerous. All of this was thanks to that bastard Shadow Guard number 1. He prayed they would never cross paths inside the Sword Forest. If they did, he would most definitely have to properly exchange a few bouts with him. The sect master of the 10,000 Swords Sect checked the time and announced, "Since all are prepared, let us begin." Whoosh, 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 Lingi. I reacted the fastest, immediately activating the talismans on his person. The 5 disciples of the 10,000 Swords Sect also cooperated seamlessly, activating their talismans one after another and shooting forward at the very front. Disciples from other sects also took action one after another, each displaying their own divine abilities as they darted forth, all wisely choosing to follow closely behind Ling Jing. Nai Yunxi's heart skipped a beat, and she was about to activate her movement talisman, but she did not receive Fang Chen's signal to act for a long time. She said anxiously, "Junior brother, if we don't keep up, we'll be too late." Fang Chen stared at the direction Ling Jing. I was heading due east and could not help but be stunned. Wasn't the best location in the northwest direction. Why was he heading east? In the next instant he understood and could not help but sneer. This Ling Jing has predicted everyone's prediction. It was likely that Ling Jing had also analyzed that his movements would be closely watched by all sects, and feared that the optimal location would be snatched away by the swarm of outer sect disciples. Thus, he had deliberately chosen a direction with barely any spiritual energy to lead the crowd away, waiting for an opportunity to quietly head to the northwest later. Since that was the case, he would not stand on ceremony, and would head to the northwest first to claim a spot. He said, "Follow me." Fang Chen moved. Tapping the tip of his foot lightly, he activated his movement technique and leaped forth, heading straight for the northwest. Nai Yunxi was stunned. "Junior brother, where are you going? We should hurry after Ling Jing. He's already almost out of sight. If we don't chase now, we'll lose him completely." Liu Ruyan was also greatly confused. In her view, the location Ling Jing was heading to was definitely the best one. Fang Chen replied expressionlessly, "Don't ask so many questions." Liu Ruyan did not hesitate for a moment, activating her movement technique to chase closely after him. She trusted Fang Chen unconditionally. Nai Yunxi and the 4 Qingyun sect disciples, however, showed hesitation on their faces. "Senior sister, what should we do?" one Qingyun sect disciple asked anxiously. Nai Yunxi was caught in a dilemma. By her judgment, following Ling Jing was definitely the right choice, but Fang Chen sighed. At this moment, Jai Ryu's eyes lit up. She crushed the movement magical artifact on her chest, caught up to Fang Chen, and asked hopefully, "May our joyous sect follow you, young master." All other sects kept their eyes fixed on Ling Jing.